Chapter 29. Amitabha. Yes, benefactors, the Hyderabad ore has indeed been bought by someone. Monk Hui Ming pressed his palms together and after confirming with the two Sindhi Buddhists once more, he said. The two of them stared at one another, unable to say a word. The Hyderabad ore was definitely not something that could sell well. These two Buddhist monks had been in the capital for several months now, but they hadn't been able to sell it. This had to do with their sales methods. The method they used to promote the Hyderabad ore wasn't right at all. Another reason was that the Hyderabad ore had just appeared and there were very few people in the capital who could recognize it. Furthermore, these two Buddhist monks were very low profile and only knew how to speak Sanskrit. If one didn't know Sanskrit, it would be impossible to communicate with them. Thus, the Zhang clan was extremely confident in this transaction and didn't consider anything else. On their way here, they even thought of using this point to lower the price. But they didn't expect that the Hyderabad ore had already been sold. Where did you sell your Hyderabad ore to? The green-robed middle-aged man asked with a grave expression. Ask him if it was bought by a clan in the capital. The other middle-aged man said. The first reaction of the two was that the two Sindhi Buddhist monks were lying and were using this method to raise the price. Otherwise, it would have been bought by another blacksmith clan in the capital. If it was the former, they would just have to pay a little more. But if it was the latter, then they would be in trouble. No matter what, the two of them had to know which competitor was faster than them. Monk Hui Ming nodded his head and immediately relayed the conversation of the two Sindhi Buddhist monks in Sanskrit. It's not a clan. It was bought by a 14 to 15-year-old child. After a while, Monk Hui Ming turned around and shook his head as he spoke to the two of them. A child. The two were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe their ears. A child? How could it be a child? This answer was even more shocking than when the two of them heard that the Hyderabad ore had been bought without any preparation at all. Master, did you translate it wrongly? The second green-robed middle-aged man said. Although he knew it was offensive, he couldn't care less at this time. The matter of the Hyderabad ore was not a small matter. The two of them could not believe that such an important thing had been bought by a child. Moreover, how could a child have such wealth? Their first reaction was to wonder if Monk Hui Ming's Sanskrit wasn't refined enough, and if he had made a mistake in the translation process, translating the name of an aristocratic family as a child. For a moment, Monk Hui Ming's expression turned extremely ugly. However, he still suppressed the unhappiness in his heart and continued to communicate with the two Buddhist monks. That's right. It was bought by a child. They said the kid was called Wang Chong. After a short moment, Monk Hui Ming spoke seriously once more. Wang Chong. The two of them felt agitated. This situation was completely out of their expectations. They had no impression of the name Wang Chong. There were so many 14 to 15-year-old children in the capital. How would they know which child it was? Tell them to be more specific. What does the child look like? The green-robed middle-aged man asked. In his heart, he still did not believe that the Hyderabad ore would be bought by a random child. This was too sudden. They said that the child was wearing green clothes and was about this tall. Monk Hui Ming carefully recounted the description of the two Buddhist monks. However, this only made the two of them more agitated and confused. There were too many children like this in the capital. Right. They said that the child is the descendant of Duke Jiao of the Tang dynasty. Monk Hui Ming finally revealed a useful piece of information. Duke Jiao. The two of them trembled, and a horrified expression appeared on their faces. What the hell? How did Duke Jiao get involved in this? In the Tang dynasty, everyone knew that Duke Jiao was incorruptible and didn't come into contact with these business matters. How could this matter be related to Duke Jiao? Are you sure you didn't hear wrongly? The two of them widened their eyes. Absolutely. Monk Hui Ming was even more shocked than the two of them. The reason why he agreed to the Zhang clan's request was because he only needed to translate and communicate with them. However, he didn't expect that Duke Jiao would be involved in this matter. In the Tang dynasty, Duke Jiao was an influential figure, and there was almost no one who didn't know of him. Ask him, what's going on here? Duke Jiao is a person of virtue and prestige, and I have never heard of him being interested in iron forging. How did he get involved in this matter? The two of them asked. This matter was too bizarre, and the two of them had to get to the bottom of it. Monk Hui Ming communicated with the two of them once more. They said that it wasn't Duke Jiao. It was Duke Jiao's grandson who took the initiative to look for him. In addition, they didn't sell the Hyderabad ore to him. Instead, they signed an agreement with him. As long as Duke Jiao's grandson is able to gather 90,000 gold taels and hand it over to him within a month, the agreement will come into effect. He will have the rights to dispose of the Hyderabad ore in the Central Plains. Monk Hui Ming revealed an extraordinary piece of news, 90,000 gold taels. The two of them widened their eyes in shock. They were at a loss for words. 90,000 gold taels was a massive sum that even the Zhang clan wouldn't be able to fork out in a short period of time. Yet, Duke Jiao's grandson actually dared to make such a huge bet. From their point of view, this was an impossible mission. But regardless, from Monk Hui Ming's words, the two of them still managed to obtain an important piece of information. In other words, the deal hasn't been completed yet. They haven't actually sold the Hyderabad ore yet? The two green-robed middle-aged men said. The two Sindhi Buddhists nodded their heads. Who? The two of them exhaled deeply. As long as the deal hadn't been completed, the matter wasn't set in stone. In other words, they still had a chance. After obtaining the address of the Wang family residence from the two Buddhist men, the two of them hurriedly left the white agate jewelry shop and boarded a carriage. That Wang Gongzi is truly formidable. Indeed, it seems like he has already expected this. At the door, the two Sindhi Buddhist men shook their heads in awe. Back then, when Wang Chong requested for the distribution rights and requested for it to be recorded in the Court of Judicial Review, the two of them didn't think much of it. But now, they no longer dared to think so. It was precisely because of this small detail that Wang Chong had already eliminated his competitors. Now, we just have to see if he can gather the 90,000 gold taels. The two of them said. 90,000 gold taels wasn't a small sum, but the two of them didn't have much of a choice. This wasn't just a test of Wang Chong's background and strength, it was also because Sinlu couldn't afford to waste any more time. The two of them received news that starved corpses had appeared in Hyderabad. Let's hope that he can do it. Otherwise, we can only look for another buyer. The two of them thought. At this moment, the entrance of the Wang family residence was bustling with activity. At the center of the entrance, Madame Wang sat on a mahogany wooden armchair. All of the nannies, servants, and maids of the Wang family were lined up in a row. Everyone's eyes were filled with worry as they looked at the carriage that was slowly approaching. The young master disobeyed Madame's orders and went out early in the morning, causing Madame to be enraged. Thus, she moved the chair over and waited since noon. By now, she was already fuming with rage. Looking at her steeled face and her silence, even the nannies who had followed her for decades were frightened. Today, none of you are allowed to persuade him. Whoever dares to do so, I will beat them up as well and punish them according to the clan's rules. Madame Wang's voice sounded from the gaps between her teeth, and it echoed in the ears of all of the guards, nannies, servants, and maids. Everyone shuddered, not daring to say a single word. They looked at Wang Chong in the carriage with pity in their eyes. This unfilial son was too outrageous. The matter yesterday hadn't even settled down yet, and today, he went out to fool around. He only returned now. If she didn't deal with him now, who knew how much trouble he would bring to the clan in the future? This time, Madame Wang had made up her mind. She couldn't allow him to do as he pleased anymore. Bring the stick over. Sitting on the chair, Madame Wang stretched out her right hand. One of the nannies gritted her teeth and passed a barbed stick over. Those who cultivate martial arts tend to have exceptionally strong bodies. This kind of stick was specially designed for members of the clan, and it was especially painful when struck on the body. Madame Wang held on to the stick silently. The atmosphere in front of the Wang family residence was frighteningly tense. In the carriage, Wang Chong felt his scalp go numb. He was shocked by the formation his mother, Zhao Shuhua, brought out. He had noticed the abnormality at the entrance of the Wang family residence from afar. Clearly, he had disobeyed his mother's orders and gone out in the morning, which had angered her. Gongzi, what do we do now? Shenhai and Meng Long also noticed the battle from afar and they couldn't help but feel uneasy. Madame's enraged expression was truly frightening. The two of them had been to the battlefield before. Through water, fire, mountains of corpses, and seas of blood, they didn't even frown. But before this madam, they subconsciously felt fearful and guilty. Don't be afraid. I will deal with it later. Wang Chong said. He patted the shoulders of the two of them confidently. But in his heart, Wang Chong wasn't too confident either. After enjoying the limelight outside for a period of time, trouble had arrived. Mother. Wang Chong walked out of the carriage with goosebumps all over his body. With an ice-cold face, his mother looked extremely frightening. Shenhai and Meng Long, aren't you two coming over? Madame Wang's face was cold and she ignored Wang Chong. Madam. Shenhai and Meng Long walked over anxiously and kneeled before Madame Wang. Madame had instructed them to guard young Master Chong, but not only did they fail to do so, they even went out with young Master Chong. The rage in Madame's heart was unimaginable. Don't the two of you have anything to say? Madame Wang's face was cold. She trusted the two of them deeply. Thus, when she heard that the two of them let Wang Chong out of the residence, she felt even more furious. We have failed in our duties, madam, please punish us. Kneeling on the floor, the two of them lowered their heads and didn't argue. There was no doubt that they had failed to live up to the expectations of her ladyship. Good. The two of you have only known third young master for a few days and you have already colluded with him. Very well. Punish them according to my clan's laws. Madame Wang said coldly. She was infuriated as well. Just by guarding Wang Chong for a day, the attitude of the two of them changed completely. They were completely uncooperative and this infuriated Madame Wang. Wait a moment. Upon hearing that Shenhai and Meng Long were to be punished, Wang Chong's face darkened. Mother, this matter started because of me. If you want to punish someone, punish me. This has nothing to do with Shenhai and Meng Long. Wang Chong's knees caved in and he kneeled respectfully on the floor. Wang Chong didn't wish to implicate Shenhai and Meng Long in this matter. Good. You have learned to protect one another so quickly. If I didn't speak of this matter, do you think that you can escape? Madame Wang said coldly. Nothing can be accomplished without rules and regulations. Mrs. Wang was also shocked by what happened yesterday. Before the matter of him kidnapping a female commoner was over, Wang Chong had already caused a huge ruckus in the vast crane pavilion and even the emperor was informed of it. And now, Wang Chong hadn't learned his lesson. Early in the morning, even though the weather was still fine, he abducted two loyal guards of the residence out of the residence. His actions were extremely secretive and no one knew what he was up to. Madame Wang was also afraid. Chapter 30. Men, bring third young master, Shenhai, and Meng Long to White Tiger Hall and punish them according to the clan rules. After saying those words, Madame Wang stood up abruptly. Wang. Wang Chong's expression turned cold. Shenhai and Meng Long's faces immediately darkened as well. The Wang clan was a family of generals and the clan rules weren't limited to kneeling on a washboard. Even a tough man would lose a layer of skin after coming out of the torture inside. It was rare for the Wang clan to resort to the clan rules, but judging from Madame's expression, she was probably serious this time. The two of them weren't afraid of the clan rules. They reaped what they sowed, but young Master Chong might not be able to tolerate it. "Madam, there's no need to say anything." Just as the two of them were about to plead for Wang Chong, Madam Wang interrupted them. She hardened her heart and made up her mind. This time, she could not be soft-hearted and had to teach Wang Chong a lesson. Only in this way would he remember it deeply, and in the future, he would know to think more before doing things, and not worry too much. For this goal, she even dragged Shanhai and Meng Long into the matter. "I've already decided on this matter, why aren't you all making a move?" Madam Wang hardened her heart and glared at the guards around her. The guards swiftly stepped forward to restrain Wang Chong, Shanhai, and Meng Long. Just as the clan rules were about to be meted out, at this moment. "Madam Wang. The King of Song has ordered me to deliver the reward." Suddenly, a voice sounded. Not too far away, a luxurious carriage drove over. From the carriage, a middle-aged guard dressed in embroidered robes came down with a red sandalwood box in his hands. In an instant, the entrance fell silent. Everyone, including Wang Chong, turned to look at the guard. "Reward?" Madam Wang's footsteps came to an abrupt halt. She turned around and astonishment appeared on her elegant face. "My husband has already left the capital and he didn't mention anything about a reward to me before he left. May I know why Lord the King of Song would bestow a reward upon him?" "He, madam, you are mistaken. This reward isn't for Lord Wang. Instead, His Excellency the King of Song specially rewarded his son, Wang Chong." The middle-aged guard said with a smile. Buzz. In an instant, countless gazes fell on Wang Chong, and they were filled with surprise. Even Madame Wang was dazed for a moment when she heard the answer. "Milord, is there a mistake? The King of Song has only seen my son a few times. Why would he suddenly reward him?" Madame Wang said anxiously. She was puzzled. The Song clan and the Wang clan had been friends for several generations, and their relationship was indeed very close. However, the Wang clan had many descendants, so it was impossible for the King of Song to pay attention to every single one of them. Moreover, the King of Song was very busy every day. Every year, he would only go to the old master's birthday to take a look. He would stay for a while and then leave quickly. In the Wang clan, only Wang Chang's father, eldest uncle, and youngest uncle had seen the King of Song a lot. At the very least, the other children rarely saw each other. The last time Wang Chong met the King of Song was 7 to 8 years ago. It was impossible for him to remember such a long time ago. Even if Wang Chong were to stand before the King of Song right now, he wouldn't be able to recognize him. Why would he suddenly reward him? I'm not too sure about that. However, the King of Song did say that this item is for your son, Wang Chong. The King of Song said that he thinks highly of your son. He also said that your son is talented and has great foresight. He will definitely have a bright future. The middle-aged guard turned to look at Wang Chong with admiration. Hua! As soon as he said that, the crowd was in an uproar. All the guards, nannies, servants, and maids looked at Wang Chong in surprise. Even Madame Wang turned her head and looked at Wang Chong in disbelief. She couldn't believe that this was what the King of Song said about her unfilial son, who was ignorant and incompetent. Madame Wang rarely interfered with the affairs of the court, but she knew that the King of Song didn't praise people easily. His evaluation of Wang Chong was extraordinary. Strange? Why would the King of Song remember me? Wang Chong was more curious than anyone else. He didn't remember doing anything worthy of the King of Song's praise. In fact, he hadn't even met the King of Song face to face. However, Wang Chong soon thought of something. Heavens! I'm afraid this matter has something to do with Lord Lu. Wang Chong smiled and immediately understood. His father had already left the capital. In the entire capital, the only person who could put in a good word for him beside the King of Song was probably Lord Lu. His performance in front of him was not in vain. "Mother, I didn't go out this morning to fool around. As you saw, even the King of Song rewarded me." Wang Chong quickly stood up and said with a smile. This was a good opportunity. If he didn't know how to make use of it, he would have wasted the King of Song's painstaking effort. Madame Wang glared at Wang Chong. Although she didn't know what was going on, she couldn't punish Wang Chong in front of the King of Song's messenger. "Hurry up and thank the King of Song," Madame Wang said coldly. "Thank you, messenger." Wang Chong quickly stepped forward and bowed. "I'll have to trouble you to thank the King of Song on my behalf." "Hee, young Master Chong is too polite." To the left and right, everyone looked at each other in dismay. Originally, everyone thought that the third young master wouldn't be able to escape this calamity. They didn't expect him to be saved by the King of Song. Wang Chong didn't fall into a daze. Making use of this rare opportunity, he quickly found an excuse, took the box, and escaped. After returning to his room and closing the door, Wang Chong poured himself a cup of tea and drank it slowly. He exhaled deeply and his heart gradually calmed down. The envoy of the King of Song had already left. His mother had also returned home, with her maids, servants, and nannies to rest. The entire Wang family residence had calmed down, and Wang Chong had the time to think about his future. His father's matter had been resolved, the funds for the Hyderabad ores project had been secured, and his childhood friend, Wei Hao, was helping out with the craftsmen. The purification and forging of the Wuxi steel weapons wasn't something that could be accomplished in a short period of time. Thus, he didn't have much to do for the time being. "Now, it's time for me to raise my strength," Wang Chong quietly said to himself as he took a sip of tea. In his last life, Wang Chong had deeply experienced that earth-shattering calamity, and he was keenly aware that this calamity was not something that could be resolved by a single person's martial prowess. An infuriated man can only take 10 steps, but the wrath of an emperor can flow blood for 1,000 li. Only by changing the entire central plains from top to bottom would he be able to deal with the calamity in the future. Thus, in this life, Wang Chong decided to walk the path of the upper echelons of the central plains. Only by changing his clan, as well as the fate of the entire empire, would he be able to fulfill his mission. Comparatively speaking, personal strength wasn't as important. However, this wasn't to say that personal strength wasn't important. In the future, if he wanted to squeeze into the upper echelons of the central plains and gain the authority to change the entire empire, he would have to possess extraordinary strength. In the central plains, in the Tang dynasty, strength was everything. Furthermore, when he met Wei Hao today, Wei Hao was able to push him back with just a light push. This was a reminder to Wang Chong. Just like what Wei Hao said, perhaps it was time for him to put in some effort. To forge iron, one had to be strong. If he wasn't strong enough, everything would be for naught in the future. For the next few days, there's no need for me to head out. I'll just stay at home and cultivate. Wang Chong thought. The room was silent. After resting for a moment, Wang Chong turned his attention to the brocade box that the King of Song had sent over to him. I wonder what the King of Song has sent over to me. Wang Chong touched the brocade box in his embrace and a hint of curiosity suddenly arose in his heart. The King of Song was a descendant of the Emperor of Heaven, a prince of the royal family. Such a person was particular about rewards and punishments, and he wouldn't reward others easily. However, if he did, he would reward others generously. It contained a large amount of lead, mercury, sulfur, and metals. Elixirs made from these ingredients were lethal poison to ordinary people. Not only would consuming it not increase one's cultivation, it would even result in death. However, it was different for fighters. An appropriate amount of lead, mercury, and sulfur could greatly strengthen a fighter's bones and tendons. This was also the uniqueness of the pill Dao. Wang Chong's cultivation was still insufficient. He had to use some medicinal herbs to neutralize the toxicity of the body-tempering pill before he could consume it. Pada. Chapter 31. After dinner, Wang Chong visited his imprisoned little sister and rested in his room for a while. Suddenly, the door opened and Shanhai and Meng Long barged in like a gust of wind. "What's the matter?" Wang Chong frowned and lifted his head. "Gongzi, someone wishes to meet you." Two uninvited guests had arrived at the Wang family residence, and they requested to meet Wang Chong. Shanhai and Meng Long had been punished by Madame Wang to stand guard at the entrance due to the incident in the day. As such, other than the two of them, no one else knew of this matter. Initially, Shanhai and Meng Long wanted to inform the madam about this matter. However, the madam already had too many things to worry about during this period of time. If she were to find out that the young master was stirring up trouble outside, she would surely fly into a rage. Thus, the two of them decided to keep this matter a secret. "Third young master, I think it's best that you meet them outside. Otherwise, if madam were to find out about it, you will surely be punished." The two of them bowed and said. Wang Chong smiled. Shanhai and Meng Long might not have realized it, but unknowingly, their mentality had changed. If it was in the past, they would never have said such words. It seemed like his earnest words and the high praise from the king of song had worked. At the very least, the two of them no longer viewed him as a profligate scion. Walking out of his room, Wang Chong saw the two uninvited guests outside the Wang family residence. Honestly speaking, Wang Chong was also curious about the background of the two and why they would look for him. "You are Wang Chong." Before Wang Chong could even speak, the two of them had already begun to question him. In truth, the moment Wang Chong appeared in the distance, before he even walked over, the two of them had already been carefully observing him. The two of them were extremely curious as to who it was that dared to steal their loot. There weren't many people who knew about the Hyderabad ores, and the other party was able to purchase the ores at an exorbitant price before them. It wasn't something an ordinary person could do. The two of them really wanted to know who their opponent was. However, neither of them expected Wang Chong to be so young. The two Buddhist monks did not lie. It was indeed a child. The Grand Zhang clan was something that even the head of the Zhang clan held in high regard for. Yet, it was actually foiled by a child. This was something that the two of them found hard to believe. "Who are you?" Wang Chong stared at the two of them, also observing them. Wang Chong did not remember seeing them, but from afar, Wang Chong could smell the strong smell of rust, sulfur, and furnace fire. People with this kind of smell must have been working in special places for a long time. Wang Chong had already vaguely guessed their origins, but he still needed them to personally confirm it. "I am Zhang Jian." "I am Zhang Song. Young Master Wang might not recognize us, but we are all from the Zhang clan in the capital," the two of them said. The Zhang clan specialized in blacksmithing, iron ores, weapons, and armor. Even though they were famous in the iron industry, the two of them didn't think that a 15-year-old child would know about them. "It's them." Wang Chong appeared calm on the surface, but getting, his heart skipped a beat. He didn't expect the Zhang clan to arrive so quickly. In his previous life, Sindhu left behind a handful of Wuzi steel weapons in the Central Plains, and those weapons were forged by the Zhang clan. If he hadn't appeared, the Zhang clan would have been the one to take over his baton and deal with the two Buddhist monks from Sindhu. In the iron smelting and iron ore industry, the capital's Zhang family had a resounding reputation, and they held an important position. If not for them, Wuzi steel wouldn't have been left behind in the Tang dynasty. It was a pity that even though the Zhang clan had sensed the uniqueness of the Hyderabad ores, they still didn't understand the true value of the Hyderabad ores. The Hyderabad ores they bought from Sindhu could only be considered as a small sample. On top of that, they didn't know the correct forging method of Wuzi steel, so they weren't able to bring out the true value of the steel. This was truly a pity. "May I know the reason why you two are looking for me?" Wang Chong smiled. "It's like this. I heard that Gongzi found two Sindhi monks and bought some ores." The two of them tried their best to be tactful with their words. The clan head had instructed them time and time again not to reveal the matter of the Hyderabad ores. The two of them didn't know how much Wang Chong knew about the ore. Was he just buying it on a whim, or did he view it as some kind of rare ore? In any case, before getting a clear understanding of Wang Chong's background, the two of them didn't wish to speak too much. Hee, as I expected. Upon hearing those words, Wang Chong chuckled on the inside. As expected, the two of them were indeed here for the Hyderabad ores. Furthermore, it was very likely that they had asked for the address of the two Sindhi monks after failing to find anything. I did buy some of that ore. Why, are you two interested in this ore as well? Wang Chong flung his sleeves and placed his hands behind his back. He didn't just buy some of it, he bought all of it. Not only did he buy all of it, he even monopolized the sales of the Hyderabad ores in the Central Plains. If the two of them hadn't met with the two Buddhist monks and were unable to buy the Hyderabad ores, why would they come here? Our Zhang clan is indeed interested in this ore. However, I heard that Gongzi has already bought all of it. Your father is an influential official of Great Tang, and we have always respected Duke Jiu. However, I have never heard that your clan has dabbled in the iron industry as well. May I ask if Gongzi is willing to part with the iron ores and give them to our Zhang clan? Of course, we won't let Gongzi suffer a loss. We will send an appropriate amount of gold as compensation to show our sincerity. The two of them bowed and said. The two of them felt that what they said was reasonable and very sincere. Duke Jiu's lineage wasn't a blacksmith, and Wang Yan's family had nothing to do with blacksmiths. The Hyderabad ores falling into the hands of the Wang clan would be a waste of a heavenly treasure. Only in the hands of the Zhang clan would they be able to display their true value. Of course, the Zhang clan wouldn't take it for free. They would also compensate them appropriately. This would be beneficial to both the Zhang clan and the Wang clan. In the eyes of the two, even though Wang Chong had stolen the Hyderabad ores, he was still a child. Furthermore, given the Wang clan's reputation, they probably wouldn't be able to afford the money needed to buy the ores. The words of the Wang clan's Gongzi were probably just the willfulness of a child. Hee. Upon hearing those words, Wang Chong chuckled. He knew that the two of them thought that he was a child, thinking that he didn't know the value of the ores. How much silver are the two of you going to give me as compensation? 1,000 gold taels. The two of them replied sincerely, emphasizing the word gold. As long as Gongzi sells the contract between you and the two Buddhist monks to us, we can immediately send 1,000 gold taels to your residence. 1,000 gold taels. This was a figure that the two of them came up with after discussing it with the clan head. In the eyes of the two of them, Wang Chong had made a huge profit by selling a contract for an ores that he didn't even have in his possession. They had investigated the matter carefully, and the annual income of a general like the Wang clan wouldn't exceed 1,000 gold taels. The reason why they gave such a huge figure was in consideration of the reputation of Duke Jiu, and it could be considered as a form of respect. Hee, if it's this amount, the two of you should return. I won't sell the contract for the Hyderabad ores. It won't be too late for the two of you to look for me after you have thought things through. Wang Chong scoffed and waved his hands. He was prepared to earn a fortune from the Hyderabad ores, perhaps even a few 100,000 gold taels. 1,000 gold taels wasn't even a fraction of what he wanted. Most probably, he could earn more than that by selling a Wuzi steel weapon. The two of them probably really treated him as a child who had never seen the world. 1,000 gold taels. There was no way he would agree to it. Why? The two of them widened their eyes in astonishment. They thought that this was a fair price. Based on their understanding, the Wang clan was an incorruptible family. For a Gongzi like Wang Chong, it would be a miracle if he could earn 10 silver taels a month. To be able to earn 1,000 gold taels without doing anything, only a fool wouldn't do such a thing. Pardon my words, Gongzi, but 1,000 gold taels isn't a small sum. If Gongzi wants more, I'm afraid that it will be difficult for us to agree to it. The faces of the two of them darkened and turned awful. 1,000 gold taels was the highest they could offer after consulting the clan head. They didn't expect that Wang Chong would ask for less. This was something that they didn't expect, and it was impossible for them to agree to it. The capital's Zhang clan was famous in the Tang dynasty, but they weren't at the level where they could throw a few thousand gold taels away casually. Furthermore, if we aren't wrong, you haven't even gotten the contract for the Hyderabad ores, right? If you aren't able to sell it for 90,000 gold taels in a month, not only will you not be able to get the Hyderabad ores, you will also have to pay a huge sum of money. Are we right? The two of them said bluntly. 90,000 gold taels, this was an impossible mission. Even for a clan like the capital's Zhang clan, this was an extremely taxing task. Needless to say, a small yamen like the Wang clan, which relied on their salary to survive. The two of them didn't believe that Wang Chong would be able to complete this mission. This was also the reason why they came to negotiate with Wang Chong. In their plan, even if they were to obtain the contract from Wang Chong, they would have to renegotiate with the two Sindhi Buddhist monks to either reduce the price or extend the time limit. In any case, gathering 90,000 gold taels in a month was an unbearable burden for any clan that had a huge budget. Hee, the two of you. I can tell that the two of you want this or very much. However, I would like to ask, if I were to give this contract to your Zhang clan, given the capital's Zhang clan's strength, how much profit can a June of this or generate? Standing on the stairs, Wang Chong's robe fluttered in the wind as he looked at the two of them confidently. The two of them were clearly taken aback. They didn't expect Wang Chong to ask such a question. With the reputation of our capital's Zhang clan, any weapon, even if it's just a sickle, as long as it has our name on it, can be sold for several times the original price. As long as this Hyderabad ore is refined by our Zhang clan into a weapon, a June can generate a profit of at least 300 gold taels. Chapter 32. What the two of them wanted to say was 600 gold taels. The Zhang clan had already done some research on this matter, and they knew that the Hyderabad ore was a top-notch ore. It didn't require too much tempering to be used for forging. Given the Zhang clan's forging method and the Zhang clan's emblem, it would definitely fetch a high price. Most metal swords and sabers were worth around a dozen silver taels or even several dozen silver taels. On the other hand, the sabers and swords forged by famous clans could fetch around a dozen gold taels or even several dozen gold taels. This was a price that many wealthy merchants couldn't afford. However, the capital's Zhang clan was different. Using the Hyderabad ore to forge swords and sabers, they were confident that they could fetch a high price of 600 to 700 gold taels or even 1,000 gold taels. As the saying went, a sword could be sold for a sky-high price of 1,000 taels of gold. Only the Zhang family in the capital had the qualifications and the ability to do so. This was also the source of the duo's confidence. From this transaction, the Zhang clan should be able to earn a profit of 30,000 to 50,000 gold taels. More importantly, if they were able to forge a large batch of such top-notch weapons, they would be able to raise the standing of the Zhang clan in the entire Tang dynasty. This was also the reason why they, as elders of the Zhang clan, were willing to work so hard to complete this transaction personally. Then do you know how much they are selling the Hyderabad ore for? Wang Chong chuckled. The words of the two of them weren't truthful at all. Just as the two of them were about to speak, their mouths opened, and they froze. They only heard that the Hyderabad ore had been bought by Wang Chong, but they didn't ask about anything else. Since the other party didn't have anything to sell, why would they bother asking about the price? Wang Chong's words had truly stumped them. The quality of this ore is excellent, and it doesn't require too much tempering. Thus, the price should be much higher. On top of that, they had to transport it over from Sindhu, making it even more expensive. However, no matter how expensive it is, it shouldn't exceed 100 gold taels, right? The two of them replied calmly. A high-quality saber and sword forged by a famous clan was worth around 100 gold taels. In the Central Plains, a family of 6 wouldn't even be able to spend that much gold in an entire year. The quality of the Hyderabad iron ores was extraordinary, and the evaluation given by the two was already quite high. In Zhang Jian and Zhang Tsong's view, no matter how high the price of the Hyderabad ores was, it was impossible for it to exceed this price. Ha! When Wang Chong heard this, he laughed. Obviously, although the Zhang family had already sensed the difference of the Hyderabad ores, they had not correctly recognized the true value of this ore. From this point of view, Wang Chong understood why in his previous life, the Zhang clan had clearly come into contact with the 2 Buddhist monks, but in the end, they only left a little bit of iron ore for the Central Plains. After all, when the Hyderabad ores first appeared, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Obviously, the Zhang family had missed this opportunity. You too, I won't hide it from you. Wang Chong raised up 3 fingers. The price that the 2 Buddhist monks from Sindhu offered is 3 times higher than yours. A jun of ore is 300 gold taels. Ah! The duo widened their eyes in shock. Neither of them could have imagined that the price of the Hyderabad ores would be so high. This had far surpassed the value of all ores in the Central Plains. I'm not afraid to tell you that I will never sell the contract for the Hyderabad ores. The 1,000 gold taels that you offered is nothing in my eyes. As long as I sell a weapon forged from the Hyderabad ores, I can easily earn more than 10,000 gold taels. As long as I sell a few weapons, I can easily raise the price of 90,000 gold taels. With his hands behind his back, Wang Chong looked down from the staircase and said arrogantly, "This is impossible." The 2 of them exclaimed in shock. "Wang Gongzi, are you joking? 300 gold taels for a jun, there isn't such a price in the entire Central Plains. It is impossible for anyone to buy it at such a price. If this is the price, we have to reconsider. Also, earning more than 10,000 gold taels for a single weapon? Wang Gongzi, we respect your esteemed ancestor. Perhaps you think that it is interesting and fun, but we don't think so. There isn't anyone in the Central Plains who can sell it at such a high price. This joke isn't funny at all." The 2 of them had a stern expression. They came here with sincerity to negotiate with Wang Chong. However, Wang Chong's attitude made them feel as though he was mocking them disrespectfully. "I'm not joking," Wang Chong said calmly. He finally understood why the Zhang clan didn't grasp this opportunity. Even without him, the Zhang clan wouldn't have grasped this opportunity. If he wanted to change the fate between the Tang dynasty and Wuxi Steel, only he could do it. It seems like you haven't done your homework. The price of the Hyderabad ores is 300 gold taels for a jun, there isn't any room for negotiation. I don't know if you can accept it, but for me, it's completely acceptable. Also, if you are worried that I won't be able to gather 90,000 gold taels, you don't have to worry at all. It won't be long before I gather all the funds. If you wish to negotiate with me, you better think it through before looking for me," Wang Chong said calmly. This wasn't arrogance, but confidence in his own abilities. The Zhang clan didn't know that with the coming of war, the prices of the weapons market would change. The Tang dynasty had been peaceful for too long, and it had been too long since they lost a war. The long period of peace and the massive army made the attitude of the Central Plains towards the smithing industry completely different from the Abbasid Caliphate to the west of Sindhu. In the Central Plains, as long as the weapons were of superior quality, it would be fine as long as they didn't affect the war. Even the Zhang clan, a smithing clan, didn't have the spirit of striving for perfection in their smithing industry. The treasured swords and sabers they forged were usually of a decent quality. Thus, the prices of weapons in the Central Plains weren't very high. On the other hand, the Abbasid Caliphate to the west of Sindhu and the distant lands, due to their small population and frequent wars, placed great importance on the smithing of weapons. The time required to forge a good weapon in the Abbasid Caliphate to the west of Sindhu was much longer than in the Central Plains, and the amount of time and effort required was much higher as well. As a result, the weapons of the Abbasid Caliphate to the west of Sindhu were even more expensive than in the Central Plains. Even the price of iron ore was much higher than in the Central Plains. Honestly speaking, the smithing skills of the Abbasid Caliphate to the west of Sindhu weren't much better than those of the Central Plains, but through this spirit of striving for perfection, the smithing skills of the Abbasid Caliphate had already surpassed those of the Central Plains. Currently, the difference in smithing skills between the two sides wasn't too great, but as time passed, this difference would only grow larger and larger. If the Tang dynasty wanted to catch up, they would have to wait until they suffered a series of defeats in the future before they would truly place importance on the smithing industry. At that time, those truly top-notch weapons that had been forged with a large amount of time, effort would be able to display astonishing value. And the weapon market of the Central Plains would undergo an astonishing change as well. The capital's Zhang clan would never know that all of this had happened in just a few years. But now, Wang Chong had already interfered. No matter how one looked at it, the transaction of the Hyderabad ores was extremely worth it. Wang Gongzi, since you aren't willing to sell it, then forget it. We'll look for you in a month's time. Of course, it would be more suitable for you to look for those two Sindhi monks. Clearly, they didn't heed Wang Chong's words at all. No matter how they listened to Wang Chong's words, they felt that it was just an excuse. As elders of the Zhang clan, they felt that they had already treated Wang Chong with utmost courtesy. Wang Chong's fooling had clearly left the duo dissatisfied. Wang Gongzi, farewell. Without another word, the two of them shook their sleeves, turned around, and left. Hee, I won't be sending you off then. Wang Chong smiled faintly at the back of the duo. The Zhang clan still felt that the Hyderabad ores were too expensive, and they thought that Wang Chong was asking for an exorbitant price without any sincerity. A month later, when he managed to forge a Wuzi steel weapon from the Hyderabad ores, the Zhang clan would know that he wasn't lying. When they knew the true value of the Hyderabad ores, they would come to beg him. But by then, he wouldn't be asking for such a price. One must know that the Zhang clan wasn't the only one in the Central Plains who ruled the Tang dynasty. Wang Chong chuckled and walked into the inner garden. That lad is too much. Doesn't he know that we are helping him? A month later, let's see where he can find the 90,000 gold taels. The Court of Judicial Review isn't a joke. A weapon for more than 10,000 gold taels. What kind of joke is that? Does he think that it's silver? What kind of weapon can be worth such a price? The two of them were furious as they walked. They came here with sincerity, but they didn't expect the Wang clan to be so arrogant, showing no respect to them at all. Let's go and tell the clan head about this. I want to see how he can earn more than 10,000 gold taels. There's no need to look for him. A month later, we will contact the two Sindhi Buddhist monks. The two of them quickly boarded the carriage and headed for the Zhang clan. The matter regarding the Hyderabad ores couldn't be settled in a short period of time. Wei Hao also needed time to find skilled craftsmen for Wang Chong. Making use of this short period of time, Wang Chong quickly focused on his martial arts. If he didn't remember wrongly, the royal court was currently discussing the 3 great training camps. In at most 2 to 3 months, the 3 great training camps would be officially established. If Wang Chong wanted to enter the Kunwu training camp, determination alone wasn't enough. He had to possess outstanding strength as well. The Kunwu training camp didn't accept just anyone. Furthermore, Yao Feng had suffered such a huge setback at the vast crane pavilion. Wang Chong didn't believe that the other party would back down and swallow his pride. Regardless of which aspect, he had to possess outstanding strength to protect himself. Whether I can enter the Kunwu training camp will depend on this body tempering pill. Chapter 33. The body tempering pill could greatly increase one's strength, but the main purpose of Wang Chong was to cultivate the dragon bone art. There were 3 kinds of bone refining techniques in the world, and they were dragon bone, tiger bone, and panther bone. Other than these 3, the rest were all unorthodox. Of the 3, the panther bone was the most common, as well as the easiest to find. The tiger bone art was much more difficult to cultivate, and only nobles possessed it. Furthermore, it was a secret of the various clans and clans. As for the dragon bone art, it was even rarer. Even the clans of nobles could only dream of it. That was because the dragon bone art was only passed down within the royal family, and it was strictly forbidden for outsiders to learn it. It was said that the dragon bone art was a bone refining technique created by the ancient Yu the Great for his descendants. After the fall of the Xia dynasty, it was passed down to the Zhou dynasty, and the Zhou dynasty passed it down to the Han dynasty, all the way until the Tang dynasty. There were many people who had never even heard of this secret art in their entire lives. Wang Chong had only managed to obtain this precious dragon bone art by chance. Even though it was only the most basic of bone refining techniques, and it wasn't some world-shaking secret art, it could still be said to be the foundation of one's martial arts. In his previous life, he had been idling around, and he had wasted 4 years of his life, missing the optimal age for bone refining. As such, no matter how hard he worked and how much help he received from the top-notch seniors of the Central Plains, he was still limited by his own limitations. After reaching Saint Martial Realm, he was unable to advance any further. To Wang Chong, this was a deep regret. His defeat in his previous life wasn't unrelated to this. In this life, he could finally make up for this deep regret of his. With the dragon bone art, he would definitely be able to surpass the limits of his previous life and reach even greater heights. Boom! Wang Chong rested for a moment before punching out. Boom! As he punched out, a scorching stream of fire emitted from his mouth and shot towards the depths of Wang Chong's body. Taking steps, bending his body, supporting his palms, stretching his bones. Wang Chong was not practicing an ordinary fist technique. Instead, it was like a dragon stretching its body and walking on the ground. The purpose of dragon bone art was to imitate the movements of a dragon, spreading out all the blood and bones in one's body so as to guide the external origin energy in this manner, stimulating the acupoints in one's body and changing the bones of a fighter from ordinary bones to dragon bones. The root bone was the foundation of all martial arts. Whether a person's root bone was good or not, it directly determined his future. A person with a good bone structure would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. A person with a bad bone structure, even if he exhausted his entire life, would only be a mortal body, and his achievements would be limited. Thus, even though the dragon bone art wasn't some earth-shattering ultimate art, and it wasn't able to bring a martial artist overwhelming strength, Wang Chong still viewed it with great importance. Pang! In the blink of an eye, Wang Chong's right fist opened up into a palm. Taking a step forward, as though a ferocious tiger descending the mountain, he punched out once more. Pang! An explosion sounded in the air and a surge of energy gushed out from the area in front of Wang Chong. This was known as the Dragon Breath Fist. The crux of practicing the Dragon Breath Fist was to comprehend the essence of the dragon's breath. At the same time, through the movement of this fist, one would be able to drive the 28 bones and 64 muscles in one's body, opening up a small pathway in one's body, allowing the medicinal essence of the pill to flow down, allowing it to strike the hidden acupoints in one's body 1,000 times easier than usual. The greatest problem with practicing this fist was that if one's movements weren't precise enough and one's comprehension of the essence wasn't thorough enough, not only would one be unable to open up a pathway for the medicinal essence of the pill through the imitation of the dragon, it would also damage the muscles and bones in one's body. It could be said that if one didn't practice this technique thoroughly, it was easy for one to get injured. However, Wang Chong was different. Even though he was only 15 and his cultivation was pitifully low, as the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains in his previous life, Wang Chong was still able to easily comprehend the essence of the dragon bone art. Furthermore, he wouldn't be able to avoid damaging his muscles and bones. How weird, in the midst of practicing, Wang Chong suddenly came to a halt. For some reason, when he was practicing the dragon bone art this time around, Wang Chong felt that his movements were exceptionally smooth. This wasn't just a matter of difficulty, but rather, it felt as though water had melted into one's body. Wang Chong was well aware of his own situation. In the past, he had been living a befuddled and unrestrained life. Logically speaking, it shouldn't have been easy for him to cultivate for such a long period of time. However, Wang Chong didn't feel this way at all. Not only that, the melted into one's body didn't seem to be something that a fighter of his current realm should be capable of. This thought flashed across his mind. Shaking his head, Wang Chong tossed this thought out of his head. Dragon ascending the clouds. Without any time to think, Wang Chong turned around and took another step forward to continue his cultivation. This was called dragon ascending the clouds. Even though his feet didn't leave the ground, Wang Chong's fist seemed to be extremely agile. His body, will, fist, and hands were all there. It was as though he was a dragon ascending the clouds. Dragon tail whip. Dragon claws. With a series of steps, Wang Chong moved like a swimming dragon. The dragon bone art, which was extremely difficult to cultivate and required precise control over one's muscles and bones, was executed by him. His movements were graceful and free. It didn't lack the might and agility of 1,000 caddies. On the ground, as Wang Chong moved around, he only left behind 7 footprints. If one were to take a closer look, one would realize that the distribution of these footprints was similar to the Big Dipper in the sky. This was called astral steps, a movement technique from the dragon bone art. Stepping on the astral steps, dragon roaming to and fro. This was the astral steps of the dragon bone art. In the quiet garden of the Wang family, Wang Chong was cultivating the dragon bone art by himself. The bone tempering art that Wang Chong was cultivating was different from others. When Wang Chong was cultivating, unlike others, he didn't swallow the entire body tempering pill. Instead, he held it in his mouth. This was a small technique used to cultivate the bone tempering art. Swallowing it would allow one to instantly release a large amount of energy, making it easier for one to cultivate. However, the effects of the pill would quickly dissipate, resulting in unnecessary wastage. However, it was different when it was held in the mouth. Even though the energy released was in the form of strands, the medicinal effects lasted longer, allowing one to bring out the full effects of the pill. Wang. Time passed slowly. Wang Chong had already passed down the order that no one was to disturb him today. Thus, he was more than happy to be alone in this quiet garden. The medicinal effects of the pill continued to spread, and Wang Chong could feel his body gradually heating up. At the same time, his strength was also growing steadily. Body tempering pill was able to increase a cultivator's strength. This was one of its uses. Regardless of whether I can successfully cultivate the dragon bone art or not, after consuming this body tempering pill, I should be able to reach origin energy tier 4 after cultivating for a period of time. While Wang Chong was practicing the astral steps, a thought flashed across his mind. Martial arts could be divided into 9 tiers, from origin energy tier 1 to tier 9. Wang Chong was only at origin energy tier 3, and he wasn't even a match for the origin energy tier 4 Wei Hao, needless to say, the origin energy tier 9 Yao Feng. With such a cultivation realm, it would be difficult for him to enter the Kunwu training camp. The 3 great training camps were still in the planning stages, and many people thought that the 3 great training camps were meant for the descendants of nobles. As such, as long as one was from a noble family, he would be able to enter. However, Wang Chong knew that when the royal court announced the recruitment criteria for the 3 great training camps in the future, many people would be shocked. In order to enter the 3 great training camps, one had to be at least origin energy tier 4. This point would cause many officials and nobles to object to it. However, the decision of that person in the royal court was already set, and it was impossible for anyone to change it. This was the rule in the future, and it would only get stricter and stricter. The first batch of students only had to be at Origin Energy Tier 4, and later on, it would be raised to Tier 5 and Tier 6. If Wang Chong couldn't squeeze into the first batch of students, it would only get harder and harder in the future. With such thoughts in his mind, Wang Chong soon entered a state of tranquility. When, after an unknown period of time, Wang Chong finally opened his eyes. Looking at the setting sun hanging high in the sky, Wang Chong was taken aback. Based on the medicinal effects of the body-tempering pill and his cultivation realm, Wang Chong estimated that he would only be able to absorb the final strand of medicinal energy after nightfall. However, for some reason, he managed to cultivate much earlier than Wang Chong expected. It seemed as though his body's ability to absorb the body-tempering pill was exceptionally strong. In his previous life, Wang Chong became the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains, and he was invincible on the battlefield. It was impossible for him to miscalculate the time required for the body-tempering pill. It was already abnormal for there to be even the slightest mistake, needless to say, for the timing to be off by such a large margin. Not only so, even a simple horse stance would cause one to feel fatigued. Yet, despite training for so long, he didn't feel the slightest bit of fatigue at all. What in the world is going on? Wang Chong stared at the sky with doubt in his eyes. Back then, when he was dealing with Yao Feng in the vast crane pavilion, Wang Chong had already felt it. Compared to his previous reincarnation, he seemed to have undergone many changes. His movements were much more nimble, and on the vast crane pavilion, he was able to dodge many of the attacks that he was unable to dodge. However, back then, this feeling wasn't very obvious. Thus, Wang Chong didn't think much of it. However, as time passed, Wang Chong realized that the changes were becoming more and more obvious. Body-tempering pill can only increase one's strength, but it doesn't allow one to feel nimble. Furthermore, if the body-tempering pill could be refined so easily, there wouldn't be a need for so many people to purchase medicinal herbs and absorb them. Where did I go wrong? Wang Chong's heart was in turmoil. His performance in martial arts in this life seemed to be completely different from the one in his previous life. No matter how Wang Chong thought about it, he couldn't find anything suspicious. If he had to point to something, it could only be his reincarnation. So, is it because of that meteor, Wang Chong thought. If not for that mysterious meteor, it would be impossible for him to reincarnate. If there was a problem, it must be related to that mysterious meteor. Furthermore, thinking about it carefully, Wang Chong could vaguely recall hearing a voice before his death, just that he couldn't remember it clearly. Could it be that the energy of that mysterious meteor modified my body? Wang Chong thought. However, after his reincarnation, Wang Chong examined his body carefully, but he couldn't find anything amiss. I'm afraid this matter will remain a mystery forever. Wang Chong sighed and soon, he calmed himself down. Even though he had miscalculated, Wang Chong soon realized that there was an unexpected harvest in his body. Not bad. Origin Energy Tier 3 Pinnacle, just a step away from reaching Origin Energy Tier 4. If I cultivate for the next few days, I should be able to do so. Wang Chong nodded his head in delight. This harvest was much higher than what he had expected. Under normal circumstances, the body-tempering pill could only raise one's cultivation from Origin Energy Tier 3 to Tier 3. 5. However, through a unique trick, Wang Chong managed to obtain a harvest that far exceeded his expectations. There are 9 tiers in Origin Energy Realm. The first 3 tiers, Stance, Blood Energy Meridians, and Blood Energy Imbuement, are all considered foundation building. Only upon reaching Origin Energy Tier 4 can one be considered to have stepped into it. By then, one's body would be able to sense the flow of energy, and through nurturing and strengthening, one's strength would grow stronger and stronger. This is what it means to be a true Origin Energy cultivator. Wang Chong thought. The most anticipated realm in martial arts was Origin Energy Tier 4. At that point, one would be able to condense their own origin energy within one's body. With this origin energy, one's cultivation in the future would be much easier, and the growth of one's strength would be much faster. For the next few days, no one disturbed Wang Chong, and he spent his days cultivating in the backyard. In his previous life, Wang Chong was a slacker. In this life, Wang Chong was extremely focused and serious. Boom! 3 days later, just as Wang Chong was cultivating the dragon bone art, boom! Suddenly, his body jolted. As though a raging wave crashing against the shore, a formless barrier in Wang Chong's body shattered, and a light and relaxed feeling gushed into his heart. Wang Chong could clearly feel the strength in his body growing significantly. Success! An epiphany arose in Wang Chong's heart. His limbs, bones, and blood began to fuse together. Specks of fluorescent energy began to emerge from the millions of cells in his body, and a weak flow of energy suddenly appeared in Wang Chong's body. Wang Chong gathered this weak flow of energy together, and soon, it formed a crouching silkworm origin energy in his dantian. What a long-awaited feeling! Feeling the silkworm-like origin energy in his body, Wang Chong clenched his fists tightly in agitation. This wasn't the first time Wang Chong had reached origin energy tier 4. Compared to the destructive strength he possessed in his previous life, the strength of origin energy tier 4 wasn't even worth mentioning. However, to Wang Chong, the feeling this time was different. To reach origin energy tier 4 at the age of 15, he had finally achieved something that he was unable to do in his previous life. At the prime age of 15, he had forged a firm foundation. Even though he wasn't sure if he would be able to break through the bottleneck of his previous life, at the very least, he had made it possible. Wang! Just as he was immersed in joy, a sudden change occurred. Wang Chong's heart tightened. He suddenly felt a formless danger and hostility in the air. Who is it? Wang Chong's face darkened, and he bellowed. Boom! In response to Wang Chong's words was a vicious punch. This punch was earth-shattering, and it caused the air in the backyard to explode. Following which, an overwhelming fist flew toward Wang Chong. Brother, receive my punch. As the fist flew forward, a tender voice sounded in the air. Hearing this voice, Wang Chong's face paled in shock. Little sister. Wang Chong didn't expect that his little sister would be the one attacking him from behind. Wasn't this lass grounded by his mother? Why did she come to the backyard? But before he could think about it, a tiny fist had already appeared in the air and was heading toward his face. Wang Chong knew his little sister too well. Chapter 34. Peng. In the blink of an eye, Wang Chong didn't have much time to think. Stepping on the ground with his left leg, he executed the stellar wind cloak and executed dragon submerging abyss together with the newly learned dragon bone art. In the past, Wang Chong wouldn't have been able to execute such an action. However, after reaching origin energy tier 4, Wang Chong's senses and reaction speed had improved significantly. A gust of wind brushed past him by a hair's breadth. In fact, Wang Chong could even feel the skin on his face being blown up and scrunched up. The wind from the punch felt as though a blade had brushed past him, causing a stinging pain on his face. Little sister, what are you doing? Wang Chong was flustered and exasperated. He wasn't Yao Feng or those battle-hardened guards of the Yao clan. If he were to be struck by that punch, he would be bedridden for at least half a month. However, Wang Chong's words were meaningless. That shouldn't be. Given your strength, you shouldn't have been able to dodge my punch. Several zhang away, the Wang family's little sister tilted her head and supported her waist with her hands. She maintained the posture of punching out as she muttered to herself. She didn't seem to hear Wang Chong's words at all. Brother, how did your reaction speed up so much? The Wang family's little sister suddenly lifted her head and asked Wang Chong. She knew Wang Chong's cultivation. In that instant, Wang Chong's reaction speed was clearly much faster than before. This lass, Wang Chong found it both funny and infuriating. He couldn't vent his anger at all. Do you think that you're the only one who can improve? The King of Song gave me a body-tempering pill, so of course my strength will grow as well. Oh, is that so? Boring. The Wang family's little sister flung her hands. Soon, she lost her curiosity toward Wang Chong. You little girl, weren't you grounded by my mother? Why did you come to my place? Wang Chong said impatiently. Upon reaching Origin Energy Tier 4, not only would one's strength increase, one's mental state and reaction speed would also improve. 3 days have passed. Why am I still in detention? Wang Xiaoyao glared at her brother in displeasure, pursed her lips, and left. Also, youngster Wei, Fatty Wei came to our house. If he didn't say he had something to talk to you about, I wouldn't have come here. What? Wei Hao is here. Wang Chong was overjoyed. Without another word, he turned around and left. There was good news from Wei Hao. Including the day at the Eight Gods Pavilion, Wei Hao had finally made use of his connections to gather the manpower required for Wang Chong's smelting of the Hyderabad ores. My father wouldn't easily allow me to enter the family business. I hid it from my father and picked them out with great difficulty. Even though these 12 blacksmiths aren't the best, they are more than capable of accomplishing your task. Wang Chong, take a look. What do you think? Not bad, right? In the western suburbs of the capital, Wei Hao brought Wang Chong and his sister to a hidden cavern mine. He pointed to 12 muscular, bare-chested men with a gleeful look on his face. Wang Chong took a glance. These 12 muscular men were as strong as steel towers. Furthermore, there were inch-thick calluses on their fingers. It was clear that they were blacksmithing experts. Without a doubt, Wei Hao had taken up the task that he had entrusted to him. Not bad, I can do it. Wang Chong nodded his head and said seriously. Hee, I knew it. We are brothers, so you can rest assured with me handling the matter. Gleeful, Wei Hao pointed at Wang Chong and bellowed, hurry up and greet young Master Chong. Young Master Chong. The 12 bronze-skinned muscular men bowed at the same time. Their expressions were respectful and filled with awe. To be able to be addressed as brothers by their young master, this pair of brother and sister must have a powerful background as well. Wei Hao, I won't say too much. Thanks. Wang Chong patted Wei Hao's shoulders. He was overjoyed. Hyderabad ore was an important part of his plan. With the help of the 12 blacksmiths from the Wei residence, his plan was finally going to start. Wang Chong was filled with anticipation and nervousness at the same time. There was too much profit to be made from Wuzi steel weapons. No one knew better than Wang Chong how much profit it could bring him. Now that the Hyderabad ore had just appeared on the market, as long as he could lay down the foundation for it, wealth would come rolling in like a tidal wave. After which, Wei Hao entrusted all of the matters to Wang Chong. Wang Chong didn't stand on ceremony. He flung his sleeves and stepped forward. Walala, a few pieces of black Hyderabad ore rolled out from his sleeves and landed on the ground. From now on, you will be split into 4 groups. I only have one request, and that is to keep the fire in the furnace burning for 24 hours a day. Now, let's start. Wang Chong said loudly. Even though he looked young and was only 15 years old, Wang Chong's prestige still lingered in his previous life when he led the armies of the world. His words carried an awe-inspiring authority. Yes, young Master Chong. The crowd responded loudly. Hung long, with a pull of the iron chain, the sluice gate opened, and a bright red stream of fire rumbled along the channel, immediately pouring down in torrents from above. Immediately after, the entire cave was filled with thick smoke. The 12 blacksmiths each pulled, and the Wei residence's iron mine in this area was immediately like a precise machine that had been activated, rumbling as it operated. Wang Chong might be knowledgeable, but this was the first time he had seen an iron mine smelting in this life. It was a unique experience for him. How high is the temperature of the fire in this channel? Looking at the crimson stream of fire pouring down from the gate, Wang Chong suddenly walked over and asked, 2,300 degrees. By the side of the channel, a 40-year-old blacksmith with tanned skin replied proudly. The stream of fire that poured down from the sluice was the underground magma that the Wei clan had hired a feng shui master to explore and receive from the cracks in the ground. The temperature of the lava flowing down from the gate was much higher than other smelting methods. In the entire capital, there weren't more than 5 underground lava flows like the Wei clan's. If not for his young master's request, under normal circumstances, this place would never be open to outsiders. The temperature is too high, it has already dropped to 1,500 degrees. Unexpectedly, Wang Chong frowned and waved his hands, issuing an order without any hesitation. Ah! The blacksmith was stunned for a moment. Unable to process the situation, he hurriedly argued, but young Master Chong, this lava flow is extremely rare. Countless prestigious clans yearn for it but are unable to obtain it. Furthermore, the higher the temperature of the smelting, the better the effect. Just do as I say. Wang Chong said with an unquestionable tone. The blacksmith was dumbfounded. Usually, the forging of swords and sabers was carried out at high temperatures. The higher the temperature, the better the effect. At the same time, the impurities in the sword would also be purified. These were the most basic principles in the forging of swords and sabers. This child known as young Master Chong was clearly ignorant of such things. Others would be overjoyed to encounter such lava, but this person complained that the temperature was too high. He was at a loss for words. Stop dawdling, do as young Master Chong says. Wei Hao said. He might not know much about smelting, but he knew that Wang Chong wouldn't speak without thinking. He must have his reasons for doing so. Sigh. Hearing those words, the middle-aged blacksmith could only sigh inside. He knew that these ores were probably going to be wasted. Even if they were to be forged, the effects wouldn't be too good. However, these ores weren't his, so he didn't have to worry about it. Just that, he couldn't help but feel that it was a pity. Release the sand. The leader of the blacksmiths turned around and said to another blacksmith. Boom! At the top of the cavern, metal chains slid. In the next instant, a few massive metal pans tilted and a large amount of fine sand was poured into the channel. Water couldn't be used to cool down the lava, only sand could be used. This was a technique created by the blacksmiths of the Central Plains, and it was superior to the smithing techniques of the western regions. As the sand was poured into the channel, thick smoke rose into the air. Seeing that the lava flow had decreased significantly, Wang Chong nodded his head in satisfaction. Wang Chong didn't know anything about smelting, but Wang Chong knew about the Hyderabad ores. This type of ore was different from other ores. For other ores, the higher the temperature, the better. However, the temperature of Hyderabad ores couldn't exceed 1,500 degrees. Too high a temperature would result in the loss of carbon in the woozy steel and the destruction of the crystalline steel within. If the woozy steel were to reach such a temperature, it would be no different from ordinary pig iron. In his previous life, many people didn't understand this secret. Coupled with the fact that the Abbasid Caliphate intentionally kept it a secret, many countries and regions ended up with a large number of defective products when forging woozy steel. As a result, the quality of the woozy steel produced plummeted, and it was a waste of such a precious material. As such, other than the Abbasid Caliphate and Karak Spazinu, there wasn't a single place that could forge a genuine woozy steel weapon. Now that the Hyderabad ores had just been released, Wang Chong was certain that more than half of the Hyderabad ores that were sold would go to waste. As long as he kept this secret, he would be able to maintain a huge advantage for a long period of time. At the very least, within a few years, he would be able to gain an advantage over the Abbasid Caliphate. Furthermore, the Abbasid Caliphate happened to be his greatest competitor for the Hyderabad ores in Sindhu. From the Hyderabad ores to the woozy steel weapon, there were still many secrets to be kept. Obtaining the ores didn't mean that one would be able to obtain the woozy steel weapon. Unless absolutely necessary, Wang Chong wouldn't reveal a single one of these secrets. Hong Long Long. As the temperature of the lava in the channel dropped to 1,500 degrees, the smelting of the Hyderabad ores officially began. These ores that came from the faraway Sindhu were placed into a furnace that was several zhang tall. Then, the lava in the channel started to pour down, and a loud rumbling sound echoed in the cavern. Wang Chong didn't know that while he was secretly smelting the Hyderabad ores, on the other side, Yao Guangyi had finally begun the final step of his plan. This will determine whether I can drive a wedge between the Song and Wang clan. Yao Guangyi's eyes lit up. Sitting on the back of his horse, his eyes shone with ambition. There was no righteous war in the spring and autumn, and there was no mercy in the royal court. Even though his grand plan had been foiled by the Wang clan siblings in the vast crane pavilion, Yao Guangyi still had another plan in mind. As long as the plan at the borders were carried out according to his plans, the Song and Wang clan would definitely fall out with each other. As long as the king of Song fell, King Qi would be able to reign supreme in the royal court. With the backing of King Qi, the Yao clan would be able to soar. Even if the old master was no longer around, the Yao clan would still be able to continue living a prosperous life. This was the reason why the old master, as well as the reason why he had painstakingly arranged this plan to deal with the Wang clan. Jaya. Chapter 35. Time passed day by day. With each passing day, the smelting of the Hyderabad ores would progress. Wang Chong did not know much about smelting, but Wang Chong trusted the blacksmiths that Wei Hao had found for him. With their abilities, it would not be a problem for them to fulfill his requests. 5 days later. It's done. The iron ingots are almost ready. Inside the cave, the leader of the blacksmiths, who was sweating profusely, suddenly shouted. His words attracted the attention of everyone in the cave. Wang. 4 burly blacksmiths extended their pincers into the blast furnace at the same time and took out 4 pieces of Hyderabad ores, or rather, Wuxi steel, and placed them on the metal platform. Unbelievable. So heavy. Such a large iron ingot can be produced from a piece of raw ore. The iron content of this ore must be unbelievable. Look at the flame, it's glowing blue. I've been smelting ores for decades and handled so many ores, but this is the first time I've seen such an ore. Look, it's still rough, but it already has the luster of steel. It's almost the same as well-tempered steel. What a miracle! A group of people surrounded the 4 Wuxi steel ingots on the metal platform. Their eyes were wide open as they clicked their tongues in wonder. When Wang Chong took out the 4 pieces of black iron ores, he did not tell them in detail. However, the blacksmiths had smelted so many ores that they could tell that the ores that Wang Chong wanted them to smelt were not from Middle-earth. Middle-earth would definitely not have iron ores that could emit blue flames from within, nor would they possess the characteristics of steel when they were just born. They had never seen such an ore in their decades of smelting. No wonder he asked me to lower the temperature to 1,500 degrees. The middle-aged craftsman in his 40s also reacted at this moment. That's great. It's indeed Wuxi steel. Wang Chong was also extremely excited. Although he had seen Wuxi steel weapons in his previous life, he had never seen the rough metal produced by Wuxi steel during the smelting process. This was the first time that Wuxi steel from a foreign country had shown its true colors in Middle-earth. This was a huge improvement. Now, it's time for the forging process. Wang Chong clenched his fist, his eyes bright. Now that the first step of smelting was complete, the next step was to create the finished weapon from the rough embryo. This step was even more important than smelting. It required more care and caution, and no mistakes could be made. Remove the fire. Use pine branches to light the fire and use the bellows to blow air. The temperature should not exceed 300 degrees. Wang Chong ordered. Those words immediately attracted everyone's attention. The 12 blacksmiths turned to look at Zhang Xian with peculiar gazes. Wang Chong's request was completely inconceivable to everyone. Young Master Chong. Isn't this temperature a little too low? Yeah. In the entire Tang dynasty, no one had ever forged at such a low temperature. This way, the forging results will be very poor. I'm afraid that even 7 days and 7 nights won't be enough to forge a weapon. The craftsmen gathered their courage and asked. It was one thing for the earth fire lava to drop from more than 2000 degrees Celsius to 1500 degrees Celsius. No matter what, 1500 degrees Celsius was still a high temperature. However, Wang Chong actually requested for a forging temperature of 300 degrees Celsius. Such a low temperature was unheard of. It sounded like a request from an ignorant layman. Even though Wang Chong's position was higher than theirs, they couldn't help but have some objections. This wasn't how forging was done. This is called cold forging. Just do as I say. Wang Chong said calmly. He stared at the 12 blacksmiths without the slightest bit of hesitation. Cold forging was a unique method of forging weapons. It could greatly strengthen the metal and increase the hardness of the weapon. However, in this time-space, cold forging was still far from the reality. Most weapons were still forged at high temperatures. This was because high temperatures softened the metal, making it easier to mold it. Furthermore, it could greatly shorten the forging time. However, many people didn't know that despite the long forging time, the strengthening effect of cold forging was far superior to that of high-temperature forging. If Wang Chong wanted to forge top-notch Wuxi steel weapons, he would have to do it through cold forging. Of course, cold forging didn't refer to the cold temperature. Rather, it was relative to the high temperature of mainstream forging. The optimal temperature for cold forging of Wuxi steel was around 300 degrees Celsius. If one didn't understand this point, the effects of forging the same Wuxi steel weapons would be worlds apart. Even though the Abbasid Caliphate was in a favorable position, it would still take them at least 5 to 6 years to forge a Wuxi steel weapon of the same quality as Wang Chong's. Cold forging, the group of blacksmiths was baffled. They couldn't understand what Wang Chong was talking about. Enough. Why are you thinking so much? Just do as I say. Wei Hao wasn't that patient. He pointed at their noses and scolded them. What nonsense, just do as I say. It's not like you are the ones forging the weapon. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Wang Chong snickered. He knew that Wei Hao didn't have any dissatisfaction. It was just his personality. However, after being scolded by Wei Hao, the blacksmiths became obedient and prepared to start work. Form groups of 3. Work at the same time. Since 7 days isn't enough, we'll use 10 days. This is the blueprint for the first weapon. Let's begin. Wang Chong unfurled a blueprint and loudly announced to the crowd. Even though Wang Chong didn't know how to forge weapons, these were the best blacksmiths around. How could Wei Hao possibly be weak when he had been handpicked? Furthermore, these blacksmiths would ask a bunch of questions during the forging process. If they weren't top-notch blacksmiths, how could they possibly ask so many questions? The more skilled a blacksmith was, the more prideful they would be, and the more they wouldn't be willing to let their subordinates forge ordinary weapons. The fact that these blacksmiths liked to be picky was a testament to their skills. Ding ding dang dang. In the next period of time, the cavern bustled with activity. Other than Wang Chong, no one knew that this was the first time the cold forging method had appeared in this world. Little sister. When the first batch of weapons is completed, I'll have to trouble you to help me with something. At this moment, Wang Chong suddenly turned around and said. What is it? The Wang family's little sister yawned in boredom. When she heard about Sindhu and Hyderabad, she thought that it would be something fun. In the end, it was just forging. How boring. Help me forge this batch of weapons once more. 3,000 times for each weapon. Wang Chong said. Shua. Wei Hao raised his thumbs up in admiration. Wang Chong, you are way too incredible. To think that you would think of using an expert like Xiao Yao to forge for you. With her strength, the quality of this batch of weapons would be raised to a whole new level. However, it was too wishful thinking on their part. I don't want to. The Wang family's little sister rolled her eyes. Without any hesitation, she rejected Wei Hao directly. To think that he would treat her as free labor. Did he really think that she was a 3-year-old child? That was too wishful thinking. 100 gold taels. I won't be doing it for free. Without any hesitation, Wang Chong raised a finger. Ah! The Wang family's little sister's eyes lit up and she widened her eyes. She seemed to be moved by the conditions that her brother offered. 100 gold taels. She might be young, but she was still able to differentiate between gold and silver. Her monthly allowance was only 10 silver taels, and yet, Wang Chong said that he would give her 100 gold taels. If she could get that much, wouldn't she be rich? Just the thought of it made her excited. I won't do it. The Wang family's little sister pouted. She suddenly turned her head to the side and rejected the offer without any hesitation. Wang Chong and Wei Hao were shocked. Just when they thought that they had miscalculated and that the Wang family's little sister was unwilling to accept the offer, they suddenly heard another sentence, 200 gold taels. Not a single tael less. Otherwise, I will tell my mother. Let my mother teach you a lesson. Upon hearing the last sentence, a bizarre expression appeared on the faces of Wang Chong and Wei Hao. This was especially so for Wei Hao. He couldn't help but burst into laughter and his eyes were about to burst. Ha ha ha. Ah, I'm dying of laughter. Wang Chong, to think that you would have such a day. Ha, Xiao Yao, you don't have to stand on ceremony with him. Your brother is a rich man now. If you don't make him bleed a little, let your mother teach him a lesson. Wei Hao looked at the serious expression on the Wang family's little sister and his stomach was about to fall to the ground from laughter. Wang Chong shook his head as well. He felt an indescribable awkwardness in his heart. This time, he had let an outsider like Wei Hao see a joke. This little sister of his was indeed a little money grubber. Deal. He had a lot of money on him now. Using Wei Hao's words, he was a tycoon now. 200 gold taels was nothing to him. Yay! The Wang family's little sister clenched her fists tightly and her face flushed red. She was just testing the waters, but she didn't expect to succeed. However, soon, the Wang family's little sister seemed to have thought of something and calmed down. She stared at Wang Chong doubtfully, 200 gold taels. That's gold, not silver. Third brother, you mustn't lie to me. Wang Chong chuckled. This lass asked for 200 gold taels from him, but he didn't believe her and started to doubt her. Wealth came too easily. Of course. When have I ever lied to you? Here are 200 silver taels. If you don't believe me, I can pass it to you first. Wang Chong took out a gold tael and passed it over. Even though 200 gold taels wasn't a small sum, Wang Chong was still satisfied to be able to invite his little sister, the Hercules of Origin Energy Tier 9. In his previous life, the reason why Wuzi steel weapons could be sold for tens of thousands wasn't just because of the rarity of Wuzi steel. More importantly, it was because of the highest level of craftsmanship that this weapon represented. Every single wood steel weapon had been crafted with a great deal of effort and care. Thus, even though Sindhu was the source of the Hyderabad ores, Abbasid Caliphate and Damascus were the core of the Wuzi steel industry. The appearance of the Hyderabad ores was just the beginning. Wang Chong didn't have any competitors yet. What Wang Chong wanted wasn't to sell Hyderabad ores but to establish his own brand. Those who were willing to fork out tens of thousands or even hundreds of gold taels to purchase a Wuzi steel weapon weren't fools. If the quality of the Wuzi steel weapon didn't exceed that of other weapons of the same grade, no one would spend so much money to purchase it. Cold forging was a crucial step in the forging process. The blacksmith had to exert his full strength, and the greater the strength, the better. In this aspect, with the help of his little sister, an expert close to Origin Energy Tier 9, Wang Chong was confident that the Wuzi steel weapon he forged would be of the highest quality and workmanship. Deal. You're not allowed to regret your decision. Upon seeing the 200 gold taels, the Wang family's little sister's eyes widened. She took it from Wang Chong's hands with a nervous expression, fearing that Wang Chong would regret his decision. But brother, where did you get so much money from? The Wang family's little sister finally realized that something was amiss. That fatty youngster Wei only said that this brother had earned quite a sum of money, but he didn't say where he got the money from. Add another 10 taels, don't tell mother about it. Wang Chong stuffed a gold ingot into her hands. Deal. The Wang family's little sister beamed with joy upon receiving the gold ingot. She couldn't be bothered about where Wang Chong got so much money from. Sweat, she sure is a little money grubber. Wei Hao felt cold sweat trickling down his back. Chapter 36. Time passed slowly. Just as Wang Chong was quietly waiting for the cold forging of the Wuzi steel weapons to be completed, 10 days later, a piece of news from the desolate border shook the entire capital. Yao Guangyi. This famous general of the Tang dynasty, known for his schemes, the third son of Old Master Yao, suddenly left the camp when the Baiyu invaded the border. He led his army and mysteriously appeared near the camp of the second son of Duke Jiu, Wang Yan. The strangest thing was that Wang Yan's army, which was supposed to be the closest to the invasion site and was supposed to be guarding the camp, had coincidentally retreated 50 li away from the camp a day before the invasion of the Baiyu tribe. Thus, for the first time, such a strange thing happened at the border camp. The army that was supposed to be guarding the camp was watching the battle from the rear, but the army that wasn't supposed to be guarding the camp replaced Wang Yan and swiftly defeated the invading Hu army. In the several hundred years since the establishment of the Tang dynasty, such a strange phenomenon had never happened at the border. Now, as the parties involved in this matter, be it Yao Guangyi or Wang Yan, they were both silent, treasuring their words like gold. But in the capital, this strange attack had already caused a huge uproar, causing the entire capital to be in an uproar. Before the Hu could even cause any damage, they were already invaded by the Tang army. From this point of view, the attack was just a trivial matter at the border, not worth mentioning. But the people in the capital weren't fools. This matter involved Old Master Yao's third son, Yao Guangyi, and also involved Duke Jiu's descendant, Wang Yan. Furthermore, it was during the intense battle between the King of Song and King Qi, so this matter wasn't as simple as it seemed. Even a fool would know that if Wang Yan hadn't inexplicably and coincidentally decided to retreat 50 li away half a day before Yao Guangyi appeared, everything would be completely different. Thinking about it, Wang Yan and Yao Guangyi, two great generals of the imperial court, had joined hands to defend against the enemy. Putting aside the truth, just the simple fact that the Yao and Wang clans had joined hands was enough to give the various parties in the capital too many hints and interpretations. People don't believe what you say, they only believe what they see. But now, when Yao Guangyi appeared with his army, Wang Yan took the initiative to avoid arousing suspicion. His army retreated 50 li in advance, away from the battlefield. This caused the entire incident to turn into a farce of Yao Guangyi marching 100 li, acting and directing it himself, replacing Wang Yan to defeat the Hu. In the capital, even a fool could tell that this was deliberate and plotted against him. Regardless of what the Yao clan wanted to do, at least Wang Yan had used his actions to clearly show the Wang clan's attitude. Yao Guangyi, the sly and cunning old fox of the imperial court, had never lost a battle. He had single-handedly instigated the conflict between the Song and Qi factions, and had almost defeated the King of Song. However, this was the first time he had suffered a defeat at the border, in the field he was most proficient in. Furthermore, it was done in an extremely clumsy manner, making everyone laugh at her. Ha ha ha, that's great. When the news reached the King of Song's mansion, the King of Song slammed his palm on the table, knocking the letter into his palm. The worries and frustrations of the past few days were swept away. At this moment, the King of Song felt unprecedentedly relaxed. Wang Zhengji, I didn't misjudge you. I didn't misjudge the Wang clan. As long as I have the Wang clan and Duke Zhou's support, even if everyone were to leave and betray me, what do I have to fear? The King of Song sat in the main hall, beaming with joy. In the past half a month, this was the best news he had heard. Wang Yan had used his own method to show the Wang clan's attitude. At this moment, the final bit of doubt in the King of Song's heart was dispelled. He, Your Highness, I said that Wang Yan wouldn't betray you. Am I right? Below the main hall, Lu Ting, dressed in a green robe, looked at the King of Song with a faint smile on his face. Ha ha ha, Academic Lu, you can say whatever you want on this matter. The King of Song pressed his hands on the armrests and stood up from his throne. I just want to know what King Qi thinks of this matter. That bastard. I nearly fell for his trap. Thinking back to everything that had happened, the King of Song felt a lingering fear in his heart. King Qi and Yao Guangyi had poached too many people from his side. At the worst, he couldn't even eat. Everyone was suspicious of him. After standing in the imperial court for so many years, King Song was well aware of what the people at his side would think if they felt that they were being doubted and doubted. In the end, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he would be deserted by his own people. He was only half a step away from this step. Thankfully, Wang Yan woke him up at the last step. As long as Wang Yan and the entire Wang clan supported him, he wouldn't have lost too badly. He would still have a chance to turn the tables. King Qi's side had completely failed. The King of Song thought as he turned to look at the old butler behind him. Even though the old butler's expression was cold and inflexible, he quickly understood his master's thoughts. Your Highness, I admit that I was wrong on this matter. I was overly suspicious and wronged the Wang clan. If possible, I am willing to head over and personally apologize to General Wang. The old butler said calmly. Back then, he was the one who invited Wang Yan to the King of Song residence. It was also the one who advised the King of Song to be wary of others when he trusted Wang Yan. Reality had proven that Yao Guangyi and King Qi were the ones who framed the Wang clan. Wang Yan was completely trustworthy. Even though he was in the wrong, the old butler didn't feel depressed. Instead, he felt happy for the King of Song. What do you think I am doing? I was the one who planned this matter, so what has it got to do with you? You won't be looking for Wang Yan. When it's Duke Zhou's birthday, I'll personally apologize to him and explain this matter. The King of Song waved his hands. Wang Yan knew that he had to retreat 50 li. This meant that the Wang clan wasn't a fool on this matter. At the very least, they could sense his suspicions. The King of Song wasn't an irresponsible person. A mistake was a mistake, and he wouldn't blame the people around him. Your Highness, don't worry. Duke Zhou won't mind. When the time comes, I will accompany your Highness. Upon seeing this sight, Lu Ting clapped his hands and chuckled. This was the King of Song he knew. Even though he would be blinded by other matters, he would always recognize his mistakes quickly. Furthermore, he never lacked the courage and determination to admit his mistakes. Given his esteemed identity as a member of the royal family, this was a rare trait. This was also the reason why he was so loyal to the King of Song. However, Your Highness, don't you find something strange? Lu Ting suddenly smiled. Wang Yan has always been an upright and straightforward person. How did he know that Yao Guangyi would lead his troops near his encampment? Furthermore, how could he predict the enemy's movements and retreat 50 li? This doesn't seem like something he would do. If Wang Yan had always been this straightforward, Yao Guangyi wouldn't have chosen to make a move on him back then. Then, he wouldn't have suffered such a huge setback at the borders and become a laughingstock. You mean, the king of Song's body trembled. After being reminded by Lu Ting, he revealed a contemplative expression for the first time. Previously, he was too focused on rejoicing that he didn't ponder over the various oddities in this matter. Indeed, this wasn't the first day that he and Lu Ting knew Wang Yan. He was well aware of Wang Yan's character. This time, Yao Guangyi made a fool of himself and made a fool of himself. This was indeed unlike Wang Yan's usual style. Could this be Duke Zhou's idea? The king of Song thought about it and could only think of the esteemed old master of the Wang clan. If this wasn't Wang Yan's idea, then it could only be the old master of the Wang clan guiding him. Thinking about it, only the old master of the Wang clan had the capability to guide him. Duke Zhou has stood in the royal court for decades. Now that he has retired, he has been summoned to the Four Quarters Embassy to be interrogated by His Majesty. I do hope that it's him. However, scheming have never been Duke Zhou's forte. Besides, the Holy Emperor is far away. No matter how formidable the old master is, he spends his days in the Four Quarters Embassy. How could he have foreseen that Yao Guangyi would appear in Wang Yan's territory? Lu Ting said. It's not the old master. The king of Song frowned. He thought that he had already guessed the answer. He didn't expect Lu Ting to refute it completely. But if it wasn't the old master, who could it be? Yao Guangyi wasn't a weakling. To be able to match up to him in terms of intelligence and make him suffer such a huge loss without making a sound, this wasn't something that just anyone could do. In the entire Wang clan, there was no one who fulfilled this criteria. Duke Zhou's eldest son, Wang Zhen, was a count and was skilled in politics, so there was a possibility. However, he was a civilian and didn't command troops. As such, he knew nothing about military affairs, so it was impossible for him to guide Wang Yan. His youngest son, Wang Dian, was an instructor at Celestial Dragon Mountain, and he was a brute. Thus, he couldn't help Wang Yan in this aspect. The rest were all Mvlyu. Who was the one guiding Wang Yan from behind the scenes? How could his means be so profound and simple? Just by retreating 50 li, he was able to make Yao Guangyi's fist land on empty air without making a sound. This person's eyes were so sharp, and his thoughts and means were so profound. If such a figure were to appear to help him, wouldn't he be like a tiger that had grown wings? This time, Yao Guangyi and King Qi's attempt to poach him had caused him to be utterly isolated. This made the king of Song realize that he was lacking such a person by his side. Even though Lu Ting wasn't bad, he specialized in analysis and lacked strategy. He was still lacking compared to the person who guided Wang Yan. But, who could it be? The king of Song racked his brains, but he couldn't come up with an answer. Your Highness, have you forgotten that there is actually another person? Lu Ting said. Who? The king of Song raised his head and blurted out. Your Highness, have you forgotten that Wang Yan still has a third young master? Didn't your Highness send him a gift not too long ago? Lu Ting smiled, but there was a deep meaning in his eyes. Who are you talking about? The king of Song was shocked. He finally knew who Lu Ting was talking about. Impossible. Even if Lu Ting said that it was the enemy of the Yao clan, the king of Song wouldn't be so shocked. After all, Lu Ting was talking about a teenager. The king of Song couldn't believe that a teenager could see through Yao Guangyi's scheme and command a battle from 1,000 li away. I'm just saying. Lu Ting said, Your Highness, have you forgotten that, the one who laughs last laughs best, and Bao Xian's matter? These two things don't seem like something an ordinary teenager would do. Hong Long. Lu Ting's words were like a bolt of lightning flashing across the king of Song's mind. In that instant, the shock in the king of Song couldn't be any greater. Indeed, if it didn't seem like something a teenager could do, then what the Wang clan's third young master did seemed like something an ordinary child could do. The king of Song recalled Lu Ting's words. Could the conflict between the Wang clan and the Yao clan in Vast Crane Pavilion be initiated by one of the parties? If the truth was really like this, then it would be too shocking. Of course, all of this was just a conjecture. Just like what Lu Ting said, it was just a saying. But even so, it was sufficient for the king of Song to remember the name, Wang Chong, deeply and leave an indelible impression on him. It's going to be Duke Zhou's birthday soon. No matter what, I have to meet this Wang Chong personally. Chapter 37. Bastard! 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 At the same time, in another resplendent King Qi residence, a furious roar accompanied by a pillar of golden clouds shot into the sky. In an instant, lightning flashed in the sky above King Qi residence. However, the golden lightning only lingered 100 zhang above the King Qi residence and it didn't affect anything else. Yao Guangyi. You disappoint this king too much. In that instant, the fury and disappointment in King Qi's heart was indescribable. Before he set off, Yao Guangyi had assured him that nothing would go wrong. On account of old Master Yao and Yao Guangyi's past achievements, he suppressed the rage in his heart and turned a blind eye to the mistake in the vast crane pavilion. He didn't expect Yao Guangyi to give him such an explanation. Not only did Yao Guangyi fail to drive a wedge between the Song and Wang clan, his farcical actions by the borders made him the laughing-stock of the entire capital. Yao Guangyi was his subordinate and he had always viewed him as his right-hand man. Yao Guangyi's failure was his own failure. Right now, those people in the royal court were laughing at him. King Qi was a prideful person and he couldn't accept failure. How could he tolerate such humiliation? Where's Yao Guangyi? Call Yao Guangyi over. King Qi was furious. Everyone in the King Qi residence, including the hundreds of people, kept quiet out of fear, not daring to utter a single word. Pass my token to Yao Guangyi. I want to tear off his head. King Qi's furious voice echoed in the residence. A moment later, a warhorse left the residence and galloped toward the borders. Duke of Wei's residence, Duke of Su's residence, Duke of Lin's residence, Duke of Zheng's residence, Duke of Yao's residence, King of Han's residence, King of Chu's residence, Prime Minister's residence. The entire incident caused a huge reaction among the upper echelons and nobles of Tang dynasty. However, no one knew that at this moment, Yao Guangyi's feelings were far more profound than anyone else's. Impossible. This is impossible. At the border, Yao Guangyi sat on the back of a horse. On the way back, he passed through many forests. He was in a daze, as though he had lost his soul. In the battle against the Hu, he was a complete and utter winner. He didn't suffer many losses and he managed to defeat the invading Baiyue Hu. At the moment of their death, Yao Guangyi could clearly see the confused expressions on their faces. He shouldn't have been the one to face them. It shouldn't have been like this. It shouldn't have been like this. If it was in the past, Yao Guangyi would have enjoyed such a feeling. If it was in the past, Yao Guangyi would have enjoyed this feeling. If it was in the battle, Yao Guang King Yao, it. Because Yao Guangyi clearly knew that in the other battle against Wang Yan and the Wang clan, he had already suffered a crushing defeat. He had lost without any suspense. It shouldn't be like this, it shouldn't be like this. Where did I lose? Yao Guangyi muttered to himself, as though he had lost his soul. His mind was filled with thoughts related to this matter. Before he carried out this matter, he had already carefully deliberated in his mind countless times. He only took action when there were no oversights. No matter how powerful Wang Yan was, it was impossible for him to predict that he would plot against him at the border. Yao Guangyi recalled the information that the scouts had sent back after they set off. Just as he led his army out and was about half a day away from Wang Yan's camp, he received news from his scouts. Everything was normal. Wang Yan's army was still in the camp, and there were no signs of movement. These scouts were all seasoned veterans who had followed him for decades. It was because of this news that he was confident that his plan would succeed. However, What Yao Guangyi never expected was that when he led his army to Wang Yan's encampment, what awaited him was an empty camp. And the mastermind, Wang Yan, had strangely appeared 50 li behind him, watching from the sidelines. Yao Guangyi was stunned. Regardless of whether he was willing or not, when those who appeared, Yao Guangyi knew that he had no other choice. He could only lead his army to face them and take over Wang Yan's original role. He had suffered a crushing defeat in this battle. As an important part of sowing discord between the Song and Wang clan, his plan had completely failed. King Qi didn't know how furious he should be. Who was the one who schemed against him? Yao Guangyi's mind was in turmoil. Wang Yan. Impossible. If he really had such capabilities, he wouldn't have dared to incite King Qi to plan this series of operations against the King of Song. Who was it? 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 In that instant, Yao Guangyi's back was drenched in cold sweat. After fighting in the royal court for so many years, this was the first time he felt a strong sense of unease. Just the thought of an invisible person, who was as resourceful and adaptable as him hiding behind the scenes to help the Wang clan made Yao Guangyi feel uneasy, as though there was a dagger at his back. Ha ha ha. Yao Guangyi, you have miscalculated. Different from Yao Guangyi, at this moment, Wang Yan was overseeing his territory and he was extremely happy. At this moment, in Wang Yan's camp, he was slaughtering chickens and goats, and fine wine was being brewed. Wang Yan had already passed down orders to reward the 3 armies. Even though this battle was fought by Yao Guangyi, Wang Yan was even more excited than Yao Guangyi. Everyone thought that Wang Yan was happy for Yao Guangyi because they were both officials in the royal court. However, no one knew that Wang Yan wasn't thinking of this. Wang Yan didn't have much talent in politics. Thus, when Yao Guangyi schemed against him in the vast crane pavilion, Wang Yan didn't know that Yao Guangyi left the capital and secretly returned to his camp to deal with him. However, this didn't mean that the Hu had crossed the border. When his scouts found out that Yao Guangyi's army had defied military orders and was heading in his direction, he was still unaware of it. The military order of the Tang dynasty dictated that no general was to retreat when facing the invasion of foreign tribes. They had to shoulder the responsibility of repelling the enemy and protecting the territory of the Tang dynasty. Those who disobeyed would be dealt with according to military law. Regardless of whether he was willing to or not, when Yao Guangyi appeared with his army, he had to work together with Yao Guangyi to fend off the Hu. He didn't have any grudges with Yao Guangyi, but the two of them weren't that close. Yao Guangyi's move was too intentional. If not for his third son Wang Chang's constant reminder, if not for his vigilance, he would have already fallen into Yao Guangyi's trap. The Yao and Wang clan will work together to bury the hatchet. Just thinking about the commotion this news would cause in the capital, Wang Yan couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. When his third son Wang Chong said that Yao Guangyi intentionally kept silent in the vast crane pavilion to frame him, Wang Yan didn't believe him back then. But at this moment, how could he still doubt it? Chonger, how did he know? Dressed in military armor, Wang Yan faced the north. After the initial agitation and excitement had passed, there was only a single thought left in his mind. There were simply too many doubts in Wang Yan's mind. His third son, Wang Chong, was only a 15-year-old child. He was rebellious and disobedient. It wasn't just the kidnapping of women, there were also many other things that really disappointed him. Wang Yan couldn't understand how a 15-year-old child like Wang Chong could know that Yao Guangyi was trying to frame him, and how did he know that Yao Guangyi would use such a method to deal with him that day? Yao Guangyi wasn't an ordinary person. Wang Yan couldn't understand how a child like Wang Chong could know of such a secretive military matter. If not for the military order, Wang Yan would have flown back to the capital to look for Wang Chong personally to ask him about it. The capital should have received my news by now. At the peak of the mountain, Wang Yan's cloak fluttered in the wind as he gazed at the gloomy sky in the distance. A few days ago, he had sent a letter back to the capital. Thinking about it, Wang Chong should have received it by now. The training at Wuzi Steel was in full swing. As usual, Wang Chong returned home after supervising the cold forging. Mother. Wang Chong pushed open the door with both of his hands. The moment he stepped through the door and called out to his mother, he was stunned. The usually spacious hall was suddenly filled with people. None of them spoke. When they saw Wang Chong enter, they raised their heads and looked over. Mother. Big uncle. Aunt. Uncle. Cousin. Not seeing these people who wouldn't normally appear here, Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly had a bad feeling. It was too quiet. Everyone was here. Other than for his grandfather's birthday, Wang Chong had never seen so many people at home. He had never seen such a scene in the past. Especially Big Uncle, who sat there with an indiscernible expression on his face. Could it be that old Master Yao reported me to the Holy Emperor? Did something happen? Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat. Just when he was feeling uneasy, his vision suddenly darkened. Wang Chong felt his body tightening. A figure rushed over and hugged him tightly. Chonger. Just when Wang Chong was about to struggle and resist, he heard a gentle voice. It was his mother. Chonger, your father said everything in the letter. Child, you have finally grown up and become sensible. Mother has wronged you in the past. Madame Wang Zhao Shuhua's tears fell onto Wang Chong's chest. Ever since Wang Chong reincarnated, this was the first time he saw her so agitated. Wang Chong was taken aback. His gaze swept past his mother's armpit and saw the envelope on the table not too far away. The handwriting on it was extremely familiar to Wang Chong. It's father's handwriting. Countless thoughts flashed across Wang Chong's mind. Wang Chong vaguely thought of something. He slowly opened his arms and hugged his mother. Mother. Wang Chong finally understood why so many people would appear here. After such a long time, is there finally news from father's side? Judging from his mother's reaction, his efforts didn't go to waste. For the last time, father finally listened to his advice. Chapter 38. Meihua, you and your mother can talk about it later. This time, we have something important to ask Chonger. We have to clarify the matter regarding the Yao and Wang clan, as well as the King of Song. Suddenly, a deep and dignified voice resounded in Wang Chong's ears. Raising his head, Wang Chong saw a middle-aged man in his 40s seated at the center of the room, in the most prominent position. His face was stern and meticulous. Just by sitting there, he exuded an authoritative and rational aura. With a single look, one could tell that this kind of person was suited to take up an important position in the royal court. And in truth, he was indeed one. Big Uncle. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind. This person was his big uncle, Wang General. In his previous life, when Wang Chong first transcended to this world, he feared nothing in the world except for his big uncle, Wang Zhen, whom he wasn't close to. In this world, there were some people who would fly into a rage because they were angry, and it was only through their rage that they instilled fear in others. However, there were some people who seemed to be born to instill fear in others. It was as if it was ingrained in their bones that they didn't know how to laugh, and when they did, it was eerie and terrifying, even more so than crying. This big uncle of his was such a person. In fact, his cousin Wang Zhuyan, from a certain perspective, had inherited these genes from his big uncle, which was why Wang Chong felt so fearful of her. Since big uncle has said so, we'll just do as he says. Madame Wang, Zhao Shuhua, released her hands with an embarrassed expression. Clearly, she was fearful of this big uncle of Wang Chong's. In a feudal society, the eldest brother was the father. As the eldest son, Wang Zhen had a natural advantage in the Wang clan. This wasn't just limited to Zhao Shuhua, Wang Chang's big aunt, uncle, little uncle, and everyone else felt the same way. The moment big uncle spoke, everyone fell silent out of fear. Only Wang Chang's cousin Wang Zhuyan had quietened down. Only Wang Chong winked mischievously and gave her a thumbs up in encouragement. Wang Chong, let me ask you. Your father suddenly broke camp at the border and the army retreated 50 li, avoiding Yao Guangyi's plot. Your father said it was your doing. You were the one who told him. Let me ask you, is this true? Wang Chang's big uncle Wang Zhen stared at Wang Chong said. In an instant, Wang Chang's aunts and uncles also turned their gazes over. Everyone looked at Wang Chong, waiting for his answer. Even though his mother had already explained everything to them, Wang Chong could tell that no one believed that he was the culprit. Even cousin Wang Zhuyan didn't believe it at all. After all, compared to what he had done in the past, what he had done this time was far too shocking. It's me. Wang Chong was silent for a moment. He met everyone's gaze and nodded seriously. These two simple words had a completely different feeling in everyone's ears. Everyone looked at Wang Chong with complicated gazes. Even though Wang Chang's father had already explained the problem clearly in the letter he had sent to the clan, however, hearing the confirmation from Wang Chang's own mouth was still very shocking. Tell me, what's going on? Wang Chang's uncle said coldly with a straight face. Wang Chong, don't be nervous. Your uncle doesn't want to interrogate you. At the side, Wang Chang's aunt, Wang Rushuang, quickly explained. You might not know this, but the incident at the border has caused a huge uproar in the capital. A few days ago, Yao Guangyi and his men appeared in your father's territory, trying to create the illusion that our Wang clan and the Yao clan have reconciled and are working together. Fortunately, your father listened to your words and led the army to retreat 50 li in advance, clearing his name and catching Yao Guangyi and the Yao clan off guard. Your father has stated all of this clearly in his letter. This is all thanks to you. In the battle with the Yao clan, our Wang clan has managed to turn the tables. Wang Chong, you're a great contributor to our Wang clan. Wang Chong was only a 15-year-old child, and there was no one in the Wang clan who didn't fear his big brother. Wang Chang's big aunt, Wang Rushuang, seemed to understand this point, so she tried to alleviate the tension with a smile. Also, it was your grandfather's intention to invite you here to understand the situation. You've done well, so there's no need to be nervous. Hearing Big Aunt's words, Wang Chang's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately perked up. If he didn't remember wrongly, his grandfather was in the Four Quarters Embassy, providing policy support to the Holy Emperor at any moment. He had never been concerned with such trifling matters outside of the empire. The incident at the border had clearly caught his attention. Or to be more precise, it was he who had caught his attention. Of the Wang clan's younger generation, only his big brother and big cousin had caught his grandfather's attention. This was the first time that his grandson was valued by his grandfather. Wang Chong shot a glance at his mother, and her face was flushed red. Clearly, she already knew of this matter. Great! Wang Chong clenched his fists tightly, and his heart tightened. This was definitely an unexpected gain. In the Wang clan, even though his grandfather was advanced in age, he still wielded an unparalleled status. All of the authority, status, reputation, and influence of the Wang clan stemmed from his grandfather's contributions to the throne. In the royal court, his grandfather wielded immense influence. The reason why his big uncle and father were able to obtain their current standing was due to his grandfather's contributions. The reason why the Yao clan's Yao Guangyi, that old fart old Master Yao, and the noble King Qi were so wary of the Wang clan and were trying to separate the Wang clan and King Qi was because of his grandfather, who rarely showed himself in the Four Quarters Embassy. However, this wasn't what Wang Chong was concerned about. Can I take a look at the letter on the table? Wang Chong pointed to the white letter on the table. Of course, this was meant for you. The people in the room nodded. Wang Chong took the letter and glanced at it. The seal on the letter had already been removed. Clearly, the others had already read the contents of the letter. However, Wang Chong wasn't surprised at all. The King of Song and King Qi were the two most authoritative kings of the Tang dynasty in the royal court. Who knew how many important officials of the imperial court and generals of the border were involved in this matter? The conflict between factions in the royal court had always been incomparably treacherous. If the Wang clan were to get involved, a single mishap could lead to their demise. All of their authority, wealth, and standing would be reduced to ashes in an instant. It would be strange if the entire Wang clan didn't care about this matter and didn't want to get to the bottom of it. Opening the letter, Wang Chong took out the paper within. Bold and majestic words gushed out from the paper, and a sense of urgency could be felt from the words. It's father's handwriting. Wang Chong recognized his father's handwriting. In the letter, his father, Wang Yan, recounted the entire sequence of events. As expected, his father listened to his words. On the day that he mentioned, he sent scouts to check on Yao Guangyi's movements and retreated 50 li in advance. The entire matter didn't take too long. However, most of it was to ask Wang Chong about the contents of the matter. Wang Chong could sense the bewilderment in his father's heart. There was no doubt that there were too many things that he couldn't understand from start to finish. How did Wang Chong know that Yao Guangyi wanted to harm him? How did he know when the King of Song would send an envoy to fetch him? How did he know that the Hu would invade and that Yao Guangyi would send troops to his territory? If Wang Chong's performance had always been outstanding, wise, and intelligent, he would have been highly regarded by the clan and displayed astonishing talent. However, Wang Chong's performance in the past had always been worrisome. In fact, not too long ago, he had even abducted a female commoner, a despicable act that even a profligate scion wouldn't do. Just think about it, for such a person like Wang Chong to suddenly become so perceptive and wise overnight, who wouldn't be suspicious? Wang Chong raised his head and looked around. Big uncle, cousin, big aunt, uncle, and everyone else was looking at him in anticipation. This was the first time that Wang Chong had received the attention of so many people in the clan. Countless thoughts flashed across his mind. Wang Chong gradually calmed down. Many of the thoughts in his mind gradually became clearer. In his previous life, until the Wang clan completely fell into decline, Wang Chong had never received any attention from the clan. In the eyes of all the clan members, Wang Chong was a hopeless fool. However, the Wang clan wasn't an ordinary clan. In the entire Central Plains, there weren't many clans that could compare to the Wang clan. Wang Chong knew that if he could receive the attention of the clan, it would be of great help to his future plans. With the resources of the Wang clan, including grandfather, big uncle, big aunt, little uncle, father, big brother, cousin, and cousin. When all of them were combined, the strength they could muster was immense. This was something that he couldn't hope to achieve by himself. But before that, he had to win their trust and gain the acknowledgement of all of the clan members. In Wang Chong's plan, the first step to changing the Wang clan was completed. The next step was to enter the core of the clan, and this was the best opportunity. His grandfather, who lived in seclusion in the Four Quarters Embassy, rarely asked about the affairs of the younger generation. Even though big uncle, big aunt, and uncle had come this time, and they were the ones asking him questions, however, Wang Chong knew that the authoritative grandfather of his was the one who was asking him questions. The incident by the border had caused too great of an impact. His father unintentionally dodged Yao Guangyi's ploy, allowing the entire Wang clan to escape a calamity. This feat was simply too astonishing. It didn't seem possible for someone of his age to do so. At this moment, not only his grandfather, probably everyone wanted to know how he did it. Wang Chong could easily come up with many plausible excuses. For example, he could say that an otherworldly expert had told him about the Yao clan's scheme, or that he had accidentally overheard the Yao clan's plan to deal with the Wang clan and told his father about it. All of these were plausible. But if that was the case, it would be the opposite of his original goal. If he wanted to squeeze into the core of the clan and gain the respect of everyone, he had to display his brilliance and leave an unforgettable impression on them. Eldest uncle, I'm not sure if you still remember that not long ago, Ma Zhou used my name to kidnap a girl. Wang Chong raised his head to look at big uncle Wang Zhen, who had the highest standing in the group. I remember. Wang Zhen replied. His face was expressionless, but his heart suddenly skipped a beat. A bizarre feeling flashed across his mind. In the Wang clan, he was the eldest son. All of the authority and influence of the old master had been inherited by him. He wielded unparalleled authority in the clan, and there was almost no one in the Wang clan who didn't fear him. Putting aside the juniors like Wang Chong and Wang Zhuyan, even the elders like Wang Rushuang and Zhao Shuhua would feel fearful before him. Wang Chong had met him several times in the past, and each time, he would cower in fear, not daring to even breathe loudly. But this time, this incompetent scum of the Wang clan actually dared to look him in the eye without any fear. Even Wang Chong's eldest and second brothers weren't capable of such a feat. This lad, Wang Zhen frowned. Honestly speaking, he didn't believe Wang Yan's words at all before coming here. How could someone like Wang Chong be able to guide Wang Yan? There was a high chance that Wang Yan was trying to protect his son in order to attract the attention of the old master. But now, looking at Wang Chong's calm and composed demeanor, Wang Zhen suddenly felt uncertain. Having been in the officialdom for several decades, he was able to discern whether he was truly fearless or feigning it. Chapter 39. Wang Chong observed his big uncle's expression and he knew what his big uncle was thinking. Honestly speaking, Wang Chong didn't like this big uncle of his. He liked to put on airs and flaunt his authority as an official. Before his parents, he would always act like an elder brother, looking down on them from above. Wang Chong didn't like him, and Wang Chong knew that he didn't like him, including his parents, big brother, second brother, little sister. Everyone. If it was possible, Wang Chong wished that he wouldn't appear before him forever. However, putting aside his hateful attitude, the Wang clan didn't have much of a conflict with him, and there wasn't any deep grudge between them. In fact, most of the time, their interests were interlinked. Just like this incident, if his father were to be assassinated by Yao Guangyi, not only would his father lose his position, but Big Uncle and the entire Wang clan would be in trouble. Thus, even though Big Uncle didn't like his parents, he still rushed over anxiously. At such a moment, not only would he not kick his father when he was down, he would even try his best to make use of his influence in the royal court to help his father. This was the reality of the entire Wang clan. Even though there might be some disagreements within the clan, they were all descendants of the Wang clan. If something were to happen, everyone would be affected. Thus, regardless of whether Wang Chong liked this big uncle or not, as long as Wang Chong wanted to change the fate of the Wang clan and the entire Central Plains, Wang Chong would have to convince his big uncle to help him. I've known Ma Zhou for quite some time. When I was with him, I treated him with all my heart and treated him with sincerity. Who would have thought that he would betray me and kidnap a girl in broad daylight? He even said that I was the one who ordered him to give her to me. Only after the incident did I realize that he was instructed by Yao Feng to approach me and frame me. As Wang Chong spoke, he put on an angry expression. At the same time, his mind spun furiously as he thought of an excuse. This is the first time I tried to befriend someone, but to think that it would end up like this. So, Ma Zhou was actually instructed by the Yao clan Gongzi, Yao Feng. I wasn't aware of this. With such a matter, I can't blame you for causing a ruckus at the vast crane pavilion. Wang Rushuang nodded her head. She was a woman, and after marrying outside, she could only be considered as half a member of the Wang family. Thus, she didn't have as much control over the family's matters as before. The conflict between Wang Chong and Yao Feng was reported to the Holy Emperor by Old Master Yao, but he didn't know that there was such an inside story. What are you trying to say by saying all this? Big Uncle Wang Zhen replied nonchalantly. He already knew what Wang Chong said. He had even investigated Ma Zhou's background. If he hadn't stopped him, Wang Chong would have been arrested and thrown into prison for kidnapping a woman in broad daylight. But he didn't say it out loud. Wang Zhen wasn't concerned about whether Wang Chong was framed or not. Even if Yao Feng was the one who framed him, he didn't mind at all. There was only one thing that he was concerned about. Wang Chong had caused a ruckus in the vast crane pavilion, injured Yao Feng, and was reported to the Holy Emperor by the Yao clan's old master Yao. In this conflict, the interests of the Wang clan had been harmed. This was what he was concerned about. What he cared about was the outcome, not the process. This was the reason why he rushed to the Wang family angrily after the court session ended. As for whether Wang Chong was framed or not, that wasn't important at all. Madame Wang Zhao Shuhua listened by the side with an awkward expression. Her lips moved, but she didn't know what to say. It was after this incident that I came to my senses and realized how big of a mistake I had made in the past. Wang Chong didn't pay it any heed and continued speaking. Wang Chong's cousin Wang Zhuyan and aunt Wang Rushuang nodded their heads. They could sense the change in Wang Chong, but they couldn't tell where this change came from. Clearly, they accepted Wang Chong's words. Even though Wang Chong had suffered in the hands of Ma Zhou, he was still able to come to his senses in time. As a descendant of the Wang clan, this was undoubtedly something to be happy about. Seeing this, Wang Chong inwardly nodded and continued. Naturally, I couldn't accept the way Yao Feng treated me. Thus, I sneaked out to get close to him, intending to deal with him to vent the hatred in my heart. However, I didn't expect to hear an unexpected piece of news at that time. Yao Guangyi had arranged for father to meet at the vast crane pavilion, intending to deal with father and drive a wedge between father and the king of Song. In the hall, Wang Chong's big uncle Wang Zhen, big aunt Wang Rushuang, big uncle Li Lin, and cousin Wang Zhuyan's body jolted. Even Wang Chong's mother had a shocked expression on her face. Clearly, this was the first time she was hearing this truth from Wang Chong. Yao Feng sent Ma Zhou to deal with Wang Chong, and Wang Chong was infuriated. Thus, he went to look for Yao Feng, only to unintentionally overhear the shocking secret of the Yao clan plotting against the Wang clan. This could be explained. If the Yao clan were to fall because of this, they would be fated to meet their end. It wasn't surprising that Yao Guangyi would lose. Wang Chong took in everyone's reactions and nodded his head in satisfaction. This was an excuse that he had racked his brains to come up with. If he were to say that he had unintentionally overheard the news from a profligate scion, Big Uncle would only think that he was lucky and that it had nothing to do with his capabilities. However, if he were to look for Yao Feng for vengeance and overhear his plan, it would be a different story. At the very least, this was the result of his hard work, and not some blind luck. Yao Guangyi is a crafty old fox. He definitely doesn't have good intentions in inviting my father to meet him. I was thinking of destroying their meeting no matter what. However, the vast crane pavilion is heavily guarded and outsiders aren't able to enter easily. I thought that it wouldn't be easy to enter, so I thought of Ma Zhou. As Wang Chong spoke, he revealed the matter regarding Ma Zhou. Everyone knew about Ma Zhou's matter, so there was no need for him to lie about it. That makes sense. To be able to think of making use of that Ma Zhou, you do have some brains. Big Uncle Wang Zhen nodded his head and praised Wang Chong, which was a rare occurrence. Around them, Wang Chong's big aunt, uncle, and cousin Wang Zhuyan had bizarre expressions on their faces. Wang Chong's mother, Madame Wang, was unable to contain her joy. Big Uncle Wang Zhen had always been a strict person. He rarely smiled, needless to say, praised others. After marrying into the Wang clan for so many years, this was the first time Madame Wang, Zhao Shuhua, heard him praise her son. Clearly, Wang Chong's actions in the vast crane pavilion had won his acknowledgement. What a weird feeling. Seeing cousin Wang Zhuyan winking at him, Wang Chong was deeply moved. He and Big Uncle didn't like one another. It felt weird to hear praise from someone he didn't like. However, it was undeniable that blood was thicker than water, and they were of the same bloodline. To be able to receive the acknowledgement of an elder, Wang Chong was delighted. However, Wang Chong didn't have the luxury of time to think about it. Big Uncle's authoritative voice sounded in his ears once more. I won't ask about the matter regarding the vast crane pavilion. Since you were able to hear about the matter regarding the vast crane pavilion from Yao Feng, it should be the same for the matter regarding the King of Song as well. However, what about the matter by the borders? Did you hear about it as well? I have known Yao Guangyi for many years, and I have interacted with him many times in the royal court. I know his means and his character. The vast crane pavilion and the King of Song are both in the capital, and the distance between them is too close. Yao Feng hangs around here every day, and he frequently visits the vast crane pavilion, so it isn't strange for him to hear about it. However, the matter at the borders is different. It is better for the fewer people who know about it. Given Yao Guangyi's character, he probably wouldn't even speak of it to his closest aide, needless to say, his son, Yao Feng. How did you know that he would assassinate your father and get him to retreat 50 li in advance? I have studied the map carefully, and Yao Guangyi's campsite isn't too far away from my father's. Back then, I deduced that Yao Guangyi's campsite was the best place for him to deal with my father. The moment Wang Chong said those words, the entire hall fell silent, to the point that one could hear a pin drop. Everyone stared at Wang Chong in shock, unable to say a word. Wang Chong's words were logical. If it were Wang Chong's big brother, second brother, or some other intelligent young genius, no one would be surprised. But Wang Chong thought this was too shocking. Chapter 40. Good child, good child. You've really grown up and become sensible. Wang Chong's mother, Zhao Shuhua, was surprised and delighted. She wiped away her tears in agitation. She was delighted. Even without looking, she knew that her son's performance had won over the hearts of all members of the Wang clan. She had 4 children, 3 sons and 1 daughter. Of them, Wang Chong was the one she worried about the most. She had been worried about him a lot. Which mother didn't wish for their son to succeed in life? Wasn't that what a mother hoped for? Now, this child had finally grown up and become sensible. This was the most gratifying and joyous thing for her. And then? Big Uncle Wang Zhen asked. However, his voice wasn't as stern as before. It was clear that Wang Chong's words had left an extremely deep impression on him, greatly altering his impression of Wang Chong as a worthless fellow. I've looked into it carefully, and there aren't many places by the borders that Yao Guangyi can manipulate. Father has always maintained the status quo, so it's impossible for Yao Guangyi to do anything to his camp. And the most likely and easiest to think of is the who. Wang Chong said grimly. His eyes were bright and calm, and his words exuded a wise and farsighted aura. Those who were familiar with him were astonished. They had watched Wang Chong grow up, but they had never seen such an expression on Wang Chong before. This child has really grown up. Big Aunt Wang Ru Shuang nodded her head. She was overjoyed. A while ago, when she heard that Wang Chong had caused a huge disaster in the vast crane pavilion, she was still furious. She felt that this child was too disappointing and had yet to grow up. But now, she didn't dare to think so. It said that even the most unfilial and mischievous boy would wake up one day. It seems like Chonger has really woken up. Big Aunt was overjoyed. Even though she was married out, she could only be considered as half a member of the Wang clan. But no matter where she married, her husband's clan and the Wang clan were bound together by the same fate. The youngest and most disappointing descendant of the Wang clan had suddenly come to his senses and displayed his hidden talents. This was something worth celebrating for the Wang clan. I've thought about it carefully. If I'm wrong, then, let's not talk about this. However, if my guess is correct, Yao Guangyi will definitely leave the capital soon and return to the borders. As it turns out, I guessed correctly. At this point, he had basically passed the test. Looking at first uncle's expression, he was basically satisfied with this inquiry. He could also explain it to his grandfather. However, Wang Chong was well aware that this alone was far from enough to gain the recognition of all the family members and squeeze into the core of the family. At most, the incident at the border had changed the impression that his uncles, aunts, uncles, and even his father had of him. If he wanted them to look at him in a different light and pay more attention to his opinions, he had to show off his abilities and display more of his abilities in front of everyone. Eldest uncle, the matter at the border has been concluded. Even though Yao Guangyi had failed twice in a row, the entire Yao clan had yet to suffer a huge blow. If nothing goes wrong, the Yao clan's old master Yao will probably seek peace with grandfather soon. Wang Chong said. What? Old Master Yao will seek peace with the old master. How is that possible? Upon hearing Wang Chong's words, everyone in the room was astonished. Wang Chong, are you joking? The Yao clan's old master is a wily old fox, and given his standing, how could he possibly seek peace with grandfather? Wouldn't that be equivalent to admitting defeat before grandfather? He probably wouldn't do it even if he were to die. Cousin Wang Zhuyan was the first to ask. The moment she said those words, everyone in the room turned to look at Wang Chong. They couldn't understand why he was so confident that the Yao clan would seek peace. The Yao clan had indeed suffered a setback this time, but it wasn't a huge blow. At the very most, they had only failed to assassinate the Wang clan. Yet, the Wang clan said that the Yao clan's powerful and reclusive old fox, Yao Guang, would seek peace with their old master. This was inconceivable. However, looking at Wang Chong's expression, it didn't seem like he was joking. Thus, everyone waited for his explanation. Ha, cousin, you don't know. If the Yao clan only lost to our Wang clan, it wouldn't mean much. Old Master Yao wouldn't have to make a move personally. But have you all forgotten? Not too long ago, Old Master Yao reported our Wang clan to His Majesty, the Holy Emperor. Wang Chong sneered coldly. Wang! As though a bolt of lightning flashing across their minds, the eyes of everyone in the room lit up. All of a sudden, they understood the meaning behind Wang Chong's words. Right now, what the Yao clan wants to appease isn't the dissatisfaction of our Wang clan, but the dissatisfaction of His Majesty. Anyone with eyes could tell what Yao Guangyi was up to at the borders. Do you think that His Majesty wouldn't be able to tell? Right now, that wily old fox Yao has no choice but to step forward regardless of whether he's willing or not. This is no longer up to him. Yao Guangyi's standing hasn't reached that level yet. That wily old fox doesn't have a choice at all. One can survive a calamity inflicted by the heavens, but one cannot survive a calamity inflicted by oneself. That wily old fox is asking for it. Wang Chong sneered coldly. He wasn't spouting nonsense. From the moment he learned of Yao Guangyi's failure, he had been thinking about this matter. To appease the dissatisfaction and anger of the Holy Emperor, this wasn't something that Yao Guangyi could do. In the entire Yao clan, only Old Master Yao was capable of doing so. Unless the Yao clan didn't want to live a life of glory and wealth, Old Master Yao had no other choice. And paying a visit to his grandfather personally was the best method. Old Master Yao might not say any words of apology, but he had to pay a visit to his grandfather at the Four Quarters Embassy. He had to admit his guilt to the sage emperor in the depths of the palace. This matter had to be done. If nothing goes wrong, that Old Master Yao of the Yao clan will probably make a move in the next 2 days. Wang Chong sneered coldly. Initially, everyone in the hall had a disapproving look on their faces. They thought that Wang Chong was spouting nonsense. But the more they listened, the brighter their eyes lit up. Eventually, they grew excited. Chonger, I've realized that you've changed. Big Aunt Wang Ru Shuang assessed Wang Chong from head to toe with a curious look, as though this was the first time she was meeting Wang Chong. You would never have said such words in the past. It seems that Ma Zhou's incident really helped you a lot and made you come to your senses. He, Ru Shuang, no matter what, Chonger is a descendant of the old master. Even though he had gone down the wrong path, how could he possibly be lacking? I think that this is his true self. In the past, it was just that he had placed his thoughts elsewhere. Wang Chong's uncle, Li Lin, was a tough man with a face full of stubbles. His back was ramrod straight when he sat, and with a single look, it was clear that he was from the military. In truth, Uncle Li Lin was a soldier, but unlike Wang Chong's father, Wang Yan, he served in the imperial army. He was a tough man, and perhaps due to his position, he had always been a man of few words. Unlike Big Aunt and Big Uncle, Uncle Li Lin had never had any prejudice against Wang Chong. A tiger father would not beget a dog son. In his view, the current Wang Chong was his true self. His uncle, don't praise him. Children shouldn't be praised too much, or else they might get arrogant. Even though Madame Wang said so, she was overjoyed on the inside. There was no one who disliked others praising their children's intelligence. Wang Chong's performance this time had caught everyone's attention. Even Big Uncle, who had always disliked him, was standing by the side silently. This had helped her gain face. Father, it's just as little brother Chong said. Grandfather will be overjoyed this time. Wang Zhuyan covered her mouth and snickered. Her grandfather and the old master of the Yao clan were sworn enemies, and they had been fighting ever since the previous dynasty. Neither side was willing to submit to the other. If the old master of the Yao clan were to apologize to her grandfather for the sake of his grandson, her grandfather would surely be overjoyed. Wang Chong's big uncle, Wang Zhen, sat there, neither nodding nor shaking his head. Even though what Wang Chong said was just a guess, Wang Zhen knew that there was a high chance that it was as Wang Chong said. Yao Guangyi had fallen into Wang Yan's hands, and the first thing he thought of was to ask the Wang clan about it. If not for Wang Chong's words, he wouldn't have thought of old Master Yao. No wonder the old master would send me here. He must have already thought of this matter regarding the Yao clan. Wang Zhen's mind suddenly cleared up. Turning to look at Wang Chong, his heart was filled with complicated emotions. His third brother, Wang Yan, had 3 sons and a daughter. Putting aside the eldest and second son, even the most useless of them all, the third son, had grown up. This would severely threaten his position as the eldest son of the Wang clan. Without a doubt, the authority and influence that the old master had passed down would be diluted once more. This wasn't a good thing for him. But on the other hand, the Wang clan was interdependent. Regardless of whether it was him or Wang Yan, it wasn't a good thing for the other party. If not for Wang Chong's astounding ability to foresee Yao Guangyi's scheme in advance, the Wang clan would have been in deep trouble this time around. As a whole, the more talented and capable the Wang clan had, the more beneficial it would be for the Wang clan. From this aspect, it was a good thing. For a moment, Wang Zhen felt an indescribable feeling in his heart. Big Uncle, even though the Yao clan has lost this time, I think that even if the old master of the Yao clan were to apologize to grandfather, we mustn't let our guard down. Observing Big Uncle Wang Zhen's expression, Wang Chong knew what he was thinking. If it was in his previous life, Wang Chong would have already washed his hands of this matter. But in this life, Wang Chong had long ago known that an apocalyptic calamity was about to descend. In this calamity, the Wang clan mustn't have any internal strife. Wang Chong had to gather all the strength he could use, including Big Uncle. And to achieve this goal, just displaying his capability wasn't enough. He had to change Big Uncle's attitude, and at the very least, he mustn't have any hostility toward him. Even though the Yao clan admitted defeat this time, they didn't do so willingly. I feel that while they were pleading for peace, there's a high chance that they would do something behind the scenes. With His Majesty watching over Father, Big Uncle, Uncle, and Little Uncle, they wouldn't dare to do anything to them. However, it's hard to say for the others. I heard that big uncle is currently planning to transfer cousin's position. Wang Chong looked deeply at big uncle Wang Zhen and said, Wang. Initially, Wang Chong's big uncle Wang Zhen was sitting on his chair, muttering to himself. Upon hearing Wang Chong's words, his body jolted as though he had been electrocuted. He abruptly sat up, and he stared at Wang Chong in disbelief. He had been in the royal court for decades, and with just a hint from Wang Chong, he immediately understood what Wang Chong was trying to say. In that instant, cold sweat began trickling down his back. In order to counter the influence of his third brother, Wang Yan, in the military, he had secretly added his eldest son, Wang Li, into the royal court's promotion list. He hoped to make use of his and the old master's influence to push his eldest son, Wang Li, to a higher position. He didn't alert anyone of this matter, but he had already instructed the Bureau of Military Personnel to handle it. If the Yao clan were to interfere in this matter, it would be disastrous. Chapter 41. Big Uncle, if you wish to send cousin up the social ladder, it would be best for you to make a move yourself and settle this matter as soon as possible. If you delay it any further, there might be trouble. Furthermore, Wang Chong felt that cousin's capability in politics was far greater than in military affairs. I hope that Big Uncle will consider this matter. Wang Chong said. In his previous life, the Yao clan had to deal with the Wang clan on several fronts. Other than Wang Chong's father, Big Uncle, Uncle, and Little Uncle, cousin Wang Li, and his own big brother Wang Fu, they were all on the list. Big brother Wang Fu was a steady person, so the Yao clan couldn't bear to make a move on him. However, cousin Wang Li was different. In Wang Chong's memories, Big Uncle was too hasty in his previous life and placed cousin Wang Li on the promotion list of the royal court, allowing the Yao clan to seize this opportunity. Yao Guangyi made use of the Bureau of Military Personnel to transfer cousin Wang Li to his side. Then, he used all kinds of methods to make cousin Wang Li make a mistake. As expected, not too long later, cousin Wang Li made a mistake, and he became the Yao clan's weapon to attack the Wang clan. But back then, Big Uncle and father had both fallen. Cousin Wang Li's weakness couldn't be used, so the Yao clan let it go. However, it was different in this life. Yao Guangyi had fallen by the borders, but his father and Big Uncle were still standing. If they wanted to deal with the Wang clan, they would surely make use of this opportunity. A dam of 1,000 li collapses due to an ant. Given the capability of the two foxes of the Yao clan, they would surely make use of this opportunity to topple the Wang clan. The reason why Wang Chong told Big Uncle Wang Zhen was to remind him. Big Uncle might not be interested in his own clan, but it was impossible for him not to be interested in the fate of his son. Wang Chong was doing him a favor, and at the same time, he wanted to change his Big Uncle's impression of him. I have my own plans on this matter. You don't have to bother about the Yao clan. I will report today's matter to the old master. Big Uncle Wang Zhen waved his hands casually, and his expression softened. Boom! The moment his Big Uncle spoke, a mechanical voice, devoid of emotion, resounded in Wang Chong's mind. The voice disappeared in a flash, so fast that people thought it was an illusion. But Wang Chong almost jumped in fright. What's going on? Wang Chong was shocked and his face paled. This voice came out of nowhere. It was not the voice of anyone in the room, but it came directly from his mind. In fact, that was not all. Wang Chong remembered this voice. In his previous life, when he was on the verge of death, he had heard this voice. Although he could not remember the content clearly, he remembered this voice. Wang Chong did not expect to hear it again at this time. Chonger, are you alright? Wang Chong's mother was the first to notice Wang Chong's strange behavior. I'm fine. Wang Chong quickly shook his head. Even though he didn't know what was going on, Wang Chong was certain that something important had happened. Mother Wang nodded her head. She thought that Wang Chong was excited. Zhu Yan, let's go. Not too far away, big uncle Wang Zhen waved his hands and left. He was still worried about his eldest son, Wang Qi, so he didn't want to stay here for a moment longer. In truth, other than Wang Chong himself, no one else in the hall noticed Wang Chong's strange behavior. Even if they did, they would think that he was happy. Wang Chong, good job. You have made second sister look at you in a different light this time. Remember to visit second sister's place soon. Cousin Wang Zhuyan stroked Wang Chong's hair before leaving. Child, you have really changed. Big Aunt is really happy for you. If you have the time, remember to visit Big Aunt. Big Aunt Wang Ru Shuang stood up. Mei Hua, I'll be leaving first. If you have the time, remember to bring your child there to take a look. All right. I'll send you off. Madame Wang Zhao Shuhua stood up to send her off. She was grinning from ear to ear. However, Wang Chong wasn't in the mood to pay her any heed. His mind was in a mess, and all of his attention was focused on the mechanical and emotionless voice. After his mother and the others left, Wang Chong rushed out of the hall and into his room. Let's go. It has been a long time since I left this place. After staying in the Four Corners Embassy for so long, it's about time for me to head out for a walk. Just as Wang Chong's big uncle Wang Zhen and big aunt Wang Ru Shuang walked out of the Wang family residence, in the eastern courtyard of the Four Corners Embassy, a white-haired elder with sharp eyes stood up from his chair with a dragon-headed cane. The elder didn't seem to be a martial artist, but when he stood up from his seat, a majestic aura gushed out from his body. The entire Four Corners Embassy, as well as the ground beneath his feet, seemed to tremble beneath his feet, accentuating his imposing figure. Wang! Upon seeing the elder stand up, all of the imperial army, guards, servants, and maids in the surroundings knelt down. Their heads were lowered, and a look of respect appeared on their faces. It was as though weak insects were looking at a massive elephant in the forest. In fact, in the entire Central Plains, this white-bearded and skinny old man was definitely one of the most authoritative figures in the Central Plains. This person was the pillar of the Yao clan, Duke Yao, Old Master Yao. Old Master, are you going to meet King Qi? An old but vigorous voice came from the side. Next to the old man was an old man in his 60s with a deep frown on his forehead. He looked unfathomable and extremely dangerous. He stood there with his body bowed and his expression was very respectful. Guang Yi has suffered a setback in the south. This matter isn't something he can take responsibility for. Old Master Yao couldn't help but sigh deeply. The Wang clan seems to have an expert helping them this time. The moment those words were spoken, the entire hall fell silent. The atmosphere was terrifyingly stifling. The news that the old master's most valued second son, Yao Guangyi, had suffered a setback by the borders spread like wildfire throughout the capital. Right now, the entire Yao clan had become a laughingstock. At the east side of the Four Quarters Embassy, silence reigned the entire day. No one dared to speak. Privately, everyone was saying that the Wang clan's Wang Gengji had received the guidance of an expert. This expert was even more formidable than old Master Guang Yi. He had even managed to play the decisive and meticulous old Master Guang Yi in the palm of his hands. In fact, there were even some who said that the incident at the vast crane pavilion was a scheme of the other party. However, up until now, no one knew who the expert behind the Wang clan was. In the Wang clan, from Duke Jiu to Wang Yan, none of them were skilled in scheming. Only the eldest son, Wang Zhen, knew a little about it, but it was limited to the royal court. He knew nothing about military affairs. In terms of foresight, he was far from matching up to old Master Guang Yi. With the help of such an expert, the Wang clan was like a tiger that had grown wings. This wasn't a good thing for the Yao clan. The old servant, Yao Chun, had been by old Master Yao's side for decades, but from the looks of it, the old master didn't have any good ideas on this matter. Old master, even though second young master isn't a match for you, he has inherited some of your teachings. This time, he has been played by the other party, and all of his intentions have been grasped by the other party. This has never happened before. Furthermore, our men have investigated the matter, but they weren't able to find any traces of the other party. Old master, second young master's opponent isn't simple. You must help him. Yao Guangyi was already in his 40s, but in the words of the old servant, Yao Chun, he was still the second young master. The one who comes doesn't come with good intentions. I have my own way of dealing with this matter. Call Guangyi back. Tell him that this is my order. Tell him not to offend the Wang clan for the time being. Old Master Yao closed his eyes and said after a long moment of silence. The old servant, Yao Chun, was also astonished. He had followed the old master for decades, but this was the first time he had seen the old master adopt a defensive stance before an opponent. Clearly, even the old master found this matter troublesome. But old master, it won't be easy to explain this to King Qi. For something like this to happen by the borders, second young master has failed time and time again. King Qi is currently furious. In the past 3 days, he has already sent 16 tokens to summon second young master back. It isn't a good thing for second young master to be summoned back now. The old servant, Yao Chun, said worriedly. Tell Guangyi not to worry about this matter. I will deal with King Qi. But before that, I have to make a trip to the west to meet my old rival in the Wang clan. Old Master Yao said slowly, and an incomparably bright light flashed across his eyes. Ah! Hearing those words, the old servant, Yao Chun, stared at Old Master Yao in shock. Clearly, he didn't expect Old Master Yao's words. That person from the Wang clan had fought with the old master ever since they were young. Even though they had been summoned to the Four Quarters Embassy by the Sage Emperor in the depths of the palace and lived next to each other, they had never interacted with one another. But now, the old master actually wanted to head to the residence of that person from the Wang clan. The old servant was at a loss as to what to say. Don't speak any further. Prepare the things for me, I'll be leaving now. Old Master Yao looked at his old servant and sighed. He knew that although his old servant was extremely talented in martial arts, he knew nothing about politics. His second son, Yao Guangyi, had suffered a crushing defeat by the borders, becoming a laughingstock for everyone. At this moment, it wasn't a matter of whether he wanted to do something or not. Rather, it was a matter of whether the Yao clan could satisfy the emperor in the royal palace. If he was still young, he wouldn't have had to lower his head to that old man in the west. But now, for the sake of his descendants, for the sake of the longevity of the Yao clan, he had no choice but to lower his head. Pang! Leaning on his walking stick, Old Master Yao walked out of the gates. At the same time, in another location, take out the name register. After leaving the Wang family residence, Wang Chang's big uncle, Wang Zhen, didn't return to his residence. Instead, he rushed to the Bureau of Military Personnel anxiously. Wang Chang's second uncle, Wang Zhen, was a grade 2 official in the royal court, and he had access to all 6 documents. How could an official from the Bureau of Military Personnel dare to stop him? The official on duty rummaged through the thick bookshelf and soon, he found the name register that Wang Zhen wanted. Without hesitation, Wang Zhen took the name register and found his eldest son, Wang Qi's name. But soon, upon seeing the circles on the name register, Wang Zhen's heart skipped a beat. He had a bad premonition. Apart from me, who else has checked this roster in the past few days? Wang Zhen asked gravely. The circles on the name register were clearly the work of others. Wang Zhen had only been paying attention to the promotion list of the Bureau of Personnel, but he neglected the fact that Wang Qi belonged to the Bureau of Military Personnel. The Bureau of Military Personnel also had the authority to promote and transfer people. In this period of time, Lord Zhang, Lord Pei, Lord Lu, and Lord Yao have all come to take a look. Previously, Lord Yao received an order from His Highness King Qi to pass the promotion list of the Bureau of Military Personnel to him. But for some reason, a few days ago, we received news that we should put it aside and pass it to him after a period of time. Shua. Hearing those words, Wang Chang's big uncle, Wang Zhen's face paled. He placed his hands on the table, and cold sweat trickled down his forehead. SSS. Wang Chang's big uncle, Wang Zhen, sucked in a deep breath, and for a long time, he was unable to speak. He felt as though he had just escaped from the jaws of a tiger. He thought that no one would know about the matter regarding his eldest son, Wang Qi, so he secretly slipped it into the promotion list without telling anyone. He thought that he could wait until the very last moment to secretly help Wang Qi get promoted. He didn't expect the Yao clan to notice it so early on. If not for Wang Chang's reminder, he might have already sent his own son into the hands of the Yao clan. Even though Wang Zhen didn't know much about military affairs, he knew that the reason why the Yao clan had the Bureau of Military Personnel send the name register to them was to transfer their eldest son, Wang Qi, to their camp. Wang Qi was still young, and given the cunning of the Yao clan's father and son, they could easily find an excuse to open a gap in Wang Qi and attack the entire Wang clan. If that were to happen, it would be too late for him to regret it. Lear, oh, Lear, I nearly harmed you. Wang Zhen sighed in relief. If not for Wang Chang's timely reminder, he might have committed a grave mistake. Chapter 42. In Wang Chang's room, all of the windows were shut and the door was bolted shut. The entire room was like an isolated world. And Wang Chong was in the center of this world. Let me think, what did I hear just now? Fate, fate. Wang Chong closed his eyes and sat on the edge of his bed, trying his best to recall the voice he heard in the hall. His hands were placed on his knees and his palms subconsciously rubbed against each other. In his previous life, Wang Chong didn't feel nervous even when he was leading an army on the battlefield. But this time, Wang Chong felt slightly nervous. Right, Fate Struggler. It's Fate Struggler. When the words Fate Struggler flashed across Wang Chang's mind, it was as though he had found the key to a certain door and a change occurred in Wang Chang's mind. A large amount of information flowed into Wang Chang's mind and Wang Chong heard the mechanical and emotionless voice once again. But this time, the content that Wang Chong heard was much more than before. User has awakened. Successfully changed the fate of your family and obtained the recognition of your family members. You have obtained the title, Fate Struggler. Fate Struggler, in the spider web weaved by fate, everyone is but an insignificant ant. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. Title, Fate Struggler, Reward, 50 Destiny Energy. Along with this voice, all kinds of illusions flashed before his eyes. Everything that happened after Wang Chang's reincarnation, from him apologizing to his parents, to him wreaking havoc in the vast crane pavilion, to him persuading his father. All of these flashed before his eyes. Wang Chong felt as though he was a bystander, reassessing his actions over the past period of time. Hiss. Seeing this scene, Wang Chong sucked in a breath of cold air. His guess wasn't wrong. Something really happened to him. This strange voice and the so-called destiny struggler was definitely not a normal phenomenon. It was no wonder why he felt that his body was much more agile after his reincarnation. It was no wonder why his cultivation of the dragon bone technique was much smoother. It was no wonder why his absorption of the body tempering pill was much faster than usual. At this moment, Wang Chong completely understood. His senses weren't wrong. There really was some unknown mysterious power taking effect on his body. But it had been so long, why hadn't he felt anything? Wang Chang's mind was in turmoil. He thought back to the time in the hall when his uncle, who had never liked him, had acknowledged him. That was when this voice appeared. So, this mysterious power actually needs to be triggered by certain conditions? Wang Chong sat on the edge of the bed, motionless. What happened today was too much of a shock to him. Wang Chong had to think carefully about what had happened to him. The host has awakened. Is this referring to me? This power appeared on me, so I became its host. In the blink of an eye, the dazzling meteor disappeared from the void. In its place was a simple and unadorned fist-sized mysterious gem that emitted powerful spacetime fluctuations. It quietly floated in front of Wang Chong. Without any reason, Wang Chong immediately knew that this gem was the Stone of Destiny. A string of information flashed through Wang Chong's mind, and right next to the Stone of Destiny, he could vaguely make out a familiar figure. Wang Chong recognized it. It was himself. The mechanical, emotionless voice stopped abruptly at this point. Then, the room became silent. There was not a single sound. Wang Chong sat in the room, his heart pounding. He could not calm down no matter what. That short piece of information gave him a huge impact. From that short message, Wang Chong felt a strong sense of danger. Child of Destiny. So I am the Child of Destiny? Being chosen by the Stone of Destiny means becoming the Child of Destiny. But what's the price? Why did it say, you will never know what kind of price you will have to pay? At this moment, Wang Chong felt a strong sense of unease in his heart. The unknown was always the most unsettling. Wang Chong had always thought that his resurrection was a favor from the heavens. But now, Wang Chong suddenly had a very bad feeling. Perhaps, this Stone of Destiny was not as perfect as he thought. Sitting on the bed, Wang Chong thought about that sentence again and again. He thought about it carefully, hoping to find some clues and extract more information. But this time, Wang Chong was unable to obtain any more information. Right, destiny energy. What's the use of destiny energy? Wang Chong suddenly said loudly. After a few times, Wang Chong gradually found the way to communicate with that strange voice, or rather, the mysterious Stone of Destiny. As long as he asked the right question, the mysterious Stone of Destiny would definitely respond. Buzz. As soon as Wang Chong said that, there was a new change in his mind. A new stream of information flowed into Wang Chong's mind. The mechanical, emotionless voice finally said something different, following this cold, mechanical voice, Buzz. The void trembled, and the scene in front of Wang Chong changed. The room he was originally standing in suddenly disappeared, and Wang Chong's vision expanded infinitely in a short period of time. There were no jade buildings, no houses, no capital, no imperial palace, and even all the mountains and rivers had disappeared. In their place were countless densely packed webs and tiny white cocoon silk, whizzing from all directions. Like spindles, they tightly wrapped around Wang Chong. From these spindle-like cocoon silk, Wang Chong felt a strong sense of rejection and hostility, as if these things were alive. All the webs and silk kept shrinking, as if they wanted to shred Wang Chong into pieces. Buzz! Seeing this scene, Wang Chong's scalp went numb, and his expression changed. He had always thought that he was favored by the heavens, which allowed him to return to 15 years old. Wang Chong naturally accepted all this. But now, it seemed that was not the case at all. Although he did not hear the cold, mechanical voice's explanation, Wang Chong knew that the dense, spindle-like webs and white silk were the world energy that the Stone of Destiny had mentioned. Looking at the dense, omnipresent world energy, Wang Chong completely understood. His rebirth did not come without a price. Just like that voice said, all of this went against the laws of nature. The fate of a world had already been decided, and when someone tried to change it, it meant that they were going against the entire world. Chapter 43. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Wang Chong once again heard the mechanical, emotionless voice, God helps those who help themselves. Only those who control their own destiny will be favored by destiny. In a normal world, once the host dies, the Stone of Destiny can only help the host gain a year of life. Only by gathering enough destiny energy can the host extend their lifespan and at the same time resist the world's restraint and complete their mission. Following this voice, light and shadow intertwined before Wang Chong suddenly saw his own soul. It was a fragmented soul, as if thousands of fragments were pieced together. And between these fragments, there was a strange energy. It was this energy that was like threads, piecing his soul together and showing signs of healing. So that's how it is. The sight of that shattered soul made Wang Chong's heart fill with bitterness. All of a sudden, he was sure that he had really died once. These fragmented soul fragments were the best proof. No wonder the voice said that he only had a year to live. Warning: the first world's restraint will come in the first month after the host awakens. Remaining days, 9 days. Warning: the world's restraint will severely harm the host's body and soul, and greatly reduce the host's lifespan until the host dies. And if the host successfully resists the world's restraint, the host's body will be strengthened every time he successfully resists it. At the same time, his lifespan will be slightly extended. Warning: the first time you resist the world's restraint, you will consume 20 destiny energy. Currently, the host has 50 destiny energy. A series of warnings rang in his mind, and following the mechanical, emotionless voice, a series of new information flowed into Wang Chong's mind. Looking at the information in his mind, Wang Chong sat on the edge of his bed and fell into deep thought. Reversing space-time did not seem as simple as he had imagined. Although the mysterious Stone of Destiny possessed powerful and unimaginable space-time abilities, it seemed that reversing space-time also consumed a large amount of its energy. And for the rest, he could only rely on himself. Moreover, wanting to change the fate of a world was far more difficult than he had imagined. To this world, he was a pure outsider, an enemy of the world. Therefore, other than facing the enemies of fate, he might also have to face the enemy world. It was either succeed or die trying. That was what all this information had been trying to tell him in another dimension. On this path, there was no turning back. This was the price the Stone of Destiny had mentioned. Fortunately, the Stone of Destiny also pointed out a direction. Every time he survived the world restriction, or rather, the punishment, his body would strengthen a little. Perhaps when he was strong enough, he would be able to completely ignore the shackles of the world. This was his only hope. Although I don't know what the world's shackles will be like, if I only need 20 destiny energy to resist it, I'll be able to defeat it. Then I have enough here. I wonder, what can I do with the remaining 30 points of destiny energy? Buzz. As this thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind, the scene before him changed again. In the boundless darkness, the Stone of Destiny suddenly disappeared, and 5 orbs of light appeared in front of Wang Chong. Heart, body, chi, technique, power. As soon as he saw the 5 orbs of light, Wang Chong suddenly understood what they meant. The 5 great schools of martial arts: heart, chi, technique, and power. These 5 orbs of light represented the 5 main elements of martial arts. Heart represented conviction. Body represented body tempering technique. Chi represented vitality that existed everywhere in the world. Technique represented the moves and spells of an attack. Power represented luck, momentum, and overall momentum. On the path of martial arts, not only did one need a strong conviction, one also needed a strong body, boundless vitality, profound techniques, and the luck of heaven and earth. When the time comes, the world will lend its strength, but when the time comes, the hero will not be free. This was something that Wang Chong understood very well in his previous life. So the use of destiny energy is actually related to the 5 great schools of martial arts? These 5 balls of light represent 5 different types of rewards. Wang Chong suddenly understood. Among the 5 orbs of light, the 3 highest level, chi, technique, and power, were all in a gray state. It was obvious that they were still in a sealed state. Only the two orbs of light that represented heart and body were still in a bright state. Conviction was useless to the current Wang Chong. Only the body tempering technique was what Wang Chong really needed. With a thought, Wang Chong sent a portion of his consciousness into the second orb of light. Wang! In the next moment, a bright light appeared in front of Wang Chong. Blood change? There's actually such a thing. Wang Chong looked at the second line and was very surprised. However, with a tap of his right hand, he opened the column without hesitation. This is it. Upon seeing this, Wang Chong chuckled. Even though he had chosen to cultivate the dragon bone art, he needed to reach the pinnacle of the dragon bone art in order to bring out its effects and convert it into dragon bones. Furthermore, before successfully cultivating the dragon bone art, his root bone was still 0. He hadn't even reached the lowest level, panther bone. However, if he could obtain the help of the Destiny Stone and possess the Panther Bone, even if it was just the most basic one Dan, it would be of great help to him. It would save him a lot of time in cultivating the Dragon Bone art. To the current him, this was undoubtedly the best and most helpful option. Wang! With a tap of his finger, Wang Chong chose to exchange it. In the next moment, a dot of light shot out. Walala! A warm energy gushed down layer by layer like a tidal wave, gushing into Wang Chong's body. Closing his eyes, Wang Chong allowed the hot spring-like energy to seep into his muscles, blood vessels, and bones. Ka-cha-cha, a series of crackling sounds echoed from the depths of his bones. It was as though boiling molten metal had been injected into Wang Chong's bones, and in a short period of time, they were swiftly strengthened. What immense energy! To think that it could alter a martial artist's bones and tendons despite the passage of time. Opening his arms wide, Wang Chong felt as though there was an inexhaustible amount of energy flowing through his body. Compared to before, his strength had clearly grown significantly. To think that the energy of destiny would allow him to reach the Panther Bone realm without the need to cultivate for a long period of time, this was inconceivable. The hot spring-like energy continued to flow into his body, and when the last strand of energy disappeared, Wang Chong realized that his cultivation realm had risen by a level, reaching tier 4.5. In terms of the toughness of his root bone, he was no different from those origin energy tier 9 and Panther Bone realm martial artists. Even though he hadn't reached origin energy tier 5 yet, in terms of pure strength, even origin energy tier 5 martial artists wouldn't be a match for him. I'm only left with 5 destiny energy points. I probably won't be able to exchange for anything else. After his cultivation realm rose by a level, Wang Chong was in a good mood. Since he couldn't do anything with the remaining 5 destiny energy, Wang Chong decided to leave them for the time being. As for the remaining 20 destiny energy, Wang Chong had to keep them to deal with the world punishment, which he had no idea what it was. Battle armor. Destiny struggler. After exchanging for the Panther Bone, Wang Chong suddenly noticed a change in the second ball of light. A simple yet elegant crimson battle armor appeared in Wang Chong's vision. The moment he saw it, Wang Chong immediately knew its name. Destiny struggler. This was a set of title armor. 80 destiny energy, this isn't something I can satisfy at the moment. Seeing the exorbitant amount of destiny energy required to exchange for this crimson battle armor, Wang Chong could only shake his head. He only had 5 destiny energy to spare at the moment, and he was still far from being able to exchange for this destiny struggler. After exiting from the body tempering category reward, Wang Chong couldn't help but turn his gaze to the first ball of light floating in the endless darkness beside the Stone of Destiny. Heart represented faith and faith. As the saying goes, attacking the heart is better than attacking the city. Heart couldn't strengthen a martial artist's physique, nor could it increase a martial artist's strength. However, it was the most important of the 5 great martial arts sets. Of the 5 great martial arts sets, the state of the heart was the most unique. It was in a half-sealed state. Wang Chong sent a portion of his consciousness into the ball of light. Then, within the half-sealed ball of light, Wang Chong saw a few unexpected words. Sense of mission. These 3 words were dark and gloomy, and other than that, there was no other information. I understand now. Looking at these 3 words, Wang Chong went silent for a long time, then exited his mind. After everything was over, Wang Chong sat on the edge of his bed, crossed his hands on his forehead, and calmly pondered. The appearance of the Stone of Destiny was something that couldn't be found in the historical records. There were too many things that he needed to think about. For example, what was the origin of the Stone of Destiny? What was the purpose of its existence? What benefits would it gain from helping me? Moreover, that mechanical, emotionless voice gave Wang Chong a very strange feeling. The way it presented itself was also very strange. It didn't seem like something that should exist in this world, but rather something from another space-time, something that originated from the world's artificial intelligence. Wang Chong could only guess that perhaps because his soul came from a different space-time, the Stone of Destiny chose to communicate with him in a way that he was more familiar with. But no matter what the reason was, there were a few things that Wang Chong could be sure of. First, any fate that went against the laws of nature would be restricted by the world. Therefore, this matter was very risky for him, but it also had benefits. His promotion to Panther Bone was enough to prove this. Second, in order to avoid the rejection and restriction from the world, he needed to obtain a large amount of destiny energy. And destiny energy could only be obtained by changing fate and saving the world. On the other hand, although the Stone of Destiny didn't mention it, Wang Chong could deduce that the greater the change he made to this world, the greater the rejection he would receive from this world in the future. In other words, he needed to obtain more destiny energy to survive in this world. To receive the crown, one must bear its weight. Whether my lifespan in this world is 1 year or 4 years, as long as I can fulfill my long-cherished wish and change the fate of this world, I don't care about anything else. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.